Welcome back to the home studio and welcome to episode 94 of the Stevie Richards Show. Yes, this has been a very, very full week and we appreciate all the support and the views and the watch time from each and every one of you out there on our WrestleMania reviews for now called WrestleMania Saturday, WrestleMania Sunday, and now we're going to talk about the fallout as well as Raw news, what went wrong. Actually, it might be the heaviest what went wrong here on the Stevie Richards Show. One of the lightest people I know, one of the leanest people I know, one of the thinnest people I know, I'm trying to encourage him, is James Romero, my co-host.
Jumping Jeff Farmer,
Yep.
you say?
Yep.
For the Patreon, we watched Jumping Jeff Farmer versus Motley Crue, and by the end of it, because Jumping Jeff Farmer's the guy who goes, yep, in the promos. You'll know exactly who he is. He's been a meme for years at this point. And then Stevie says, we need to see the one match that he's got on YouTube. And we watched it, and I think afterwards we were like, that was better than half the matches you see today.
And some on WrestleMania. It was crazy. Yeah. They say, hey, Jeff Farmer, Motley Crue, what is he? You showed us. Now we see.
I did say also he has the same size belly as Vince Neil. It does Motley Crue. So, I mean, maybe that's his tribute to the future. Or maybe Vince Neil's paying a tribute to Motley Crue.
Yeah, we were trying to figure out Jeff Farmer is pretty much Jeff Farmer. I don't think there's anybody exactly like him.
Apart from Motley, right, okay, Jeff Farmer. Did you think that Jeff Farmer, that one there, was the same Jeff Farmer that was NWO Sting?
No, absolutely not. Because
Farmer.
He's jumping, not the fake Sting Jeff Farmer. But
he was dropping Jeff Farmer with the Sting thing.
Poor Jeff Farmer in WCW. You search his name, jumping Jeff Farmer comes up first. Then if you go deeper, you're like, oh, you were like the phony Sting. I know something about imitation and parody, but yeah, he was stuck in an impossible. And that dude was a pretty big dude. He looked kind of like American Gladiator type build on him, but did nothing with him.
I think he had more success in Japan. Did NWO Sting.
As an NWO Sting with Chono and that whole Japanese version of the NWO, I believe.
Right, we're going to be talking about the WrestleMania fallout. This is going to be our last episode dedicated to news and the most recent happening completely. We always do a bit of news at the end of the shows. Next week onward, we're going to have fan questions again, which we got so many fan questions from the last time. We're just going to keep dipping into that for a while. Then after that, it's kind of back to basics of the Stevie Richards Show. We're going to push through probably November to Remember 95 because I'm looking forward to watching that again and do a couple of episodes on that. And we just kind of get back to the basics of the Stevie Richards Show tenets and the core values and beliefs, Stevie, would you believe, of what kind of the show was based on? Because I think it has been pretty news heavy recently.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But we, of course, always try to get under 2 hours. So even with WrestleMania reviews and splitting them up, we were still well over 2 hours. But I can foresee 3 to 4 hour shows possibly. Of course, we do pretty much an hour before on Patreon for the watch along and the show before the show, the pre-show, all that. So we should get in the pitches, I guess we're talking about Patreon.
Yes, of course. So I've got a channel. Stevie's got a channel of fitness. He's got another channel coming up soon, but we'll talk about that some other time. Or will we?
I have a very much a passion for technology and gaming and production. I think people are pretty clued into that right now. So yeah, that's going to come to fruition. But trying to simplify it and actually help people with kind of like the one-on-ones of that type of stuff.
Stevie Richards also has a cameo, and the reason why so many people buy his cameos, purchase his cameos, is because one, they're very underpriced still currently. For goodness sake, he won't ever change the prices.
I was about to yesterday. When I was under the profile, I was like, I was ready to surprise you.
Hey, that profile, it gets expensive. So if you still want it at the way too cheap price, get your cameos very, very soon before Stevie is once again under the influence and finally jacks up those prices. He has 5 stars across the board, and the reason is because he gives you more than your money's worth. Everybody who's ever had a cameo from Stevie will tell you that. That's why he's one of the most popular, not just wrestlers, but celebrities on the Cameo platform. And most importantly, the Patreon, the Stevie Richards Show Patreon, of which we kind of hinted at the beginning. We watched Jumping Jeff Farmer versus Motley Crue. That's coming up this Monday. What do we watch for this Monday just gone, Stevie?
I totally forget. I'm getting more and more like my co-host, James Romero. I think it was, we keep going back to the Martel and Grillo one. We had one after that, correct? But
Yeah.
that's living in infamy on our Patreon community.
How
So
many people have talked about that one?
quite a few, quite a few. We just got a comment overnight, I believe, where the person said they defend agree, and they might be right. He was going over to the knocked out referee to wake him up, but I didn't see that part because I thought the referee was down on the corner towards the hard camera, and he was going towards the crowd side, away from the hard camera, in this corner right here. I believe he still went to a phantom corner and totally forgot he was supposed to get hit with the bone and get turned over and pinned.
So apparently what we watched last Monday, according to your spelling, is Great versus Bob Backlund.
Well, Bret is great. Did it really audit the stupid Apple with their updates and audit? Great versus great versus not so great. How's
That match wasn't as bad as I remember it. We should.
But
Do you know what?
They did get a lot of comments saying yes, this was Bret's worst match at WrestleMania.
Oh yeah, stunk. For Bret anyway. But do you know what we should watch next? Because it actually came up on the Dutch Mantel show. Was Lawrence Taylor versus Bam Bam Bigelow? Because that was the first. Yeah, that was the first major celebrity match that I remember. Anyway, when I was watching wrestling.
Yeah, I would say. Well, WrestleMania 2 had the Battle Royal with all the football players in it.
I wasn't even alive for that. I'm talking since I watched wrestling.
Oh, well, sorry. WrestleMania 2 had all football players in, they were in 3 locations. I believe the location of the Battle Royal was Chicago. And that was also the location for the Mr. T Roddy Piper boxing match as well, I believe. Not sure. Dude, that was a confusing event. I mean, I give them credit for trying, but to have, New York, Chicago, LA all at once, correct?
Yeah. I mean, have I said this before? The only reason they did it is because Starrcade did 2 locations the year before.
So they were just trying to, you do 2, I'll do. Yeah, that was the ultimate one-upping in pro wrestling. That is a tenet of that. When you were looking that up, I want to kind of talk a little bit about last week when I talked about my eye, the issues.
Well, just before about the eye thing, CTE has struck because Mr. T and Roddy Piper was in Nassau Coliseum. And it was the Bulldogs versus Dream Team in the Rosemont. And, of course, Hulk Hogan, King Kong Bundy in the cage in L.A.
Well, when we have a WrestleMania with only one location, I am on point. You use multiple locations, the CTE does start to kick in. So today, CTE, CTE saying, not me. But my eye, last week, there was a lot of people that reached out to you, reached out to me, sent messages, because I was a little concerned about this. And we were trying to get in on an emergency basis to see if I had a detached retina or anything like that. It was flash of light, and then it just seemed like the floaters and everything else, and I have cataracts. So we went to the eye doctor yesterday, and it seems like I have what's called cobblestones with my retina that are supposed to be, going away naturally on their own, be reabsorbed into my body. But it's a symptom of aging, nothing from getting hit. As a matter of fact, this eye is the one that got the orbital bone broken twice, not once, but twice. So, as far as orbital bone, CT wins because it's multiple instances. But yeah, this is the eye that seems to be having trouble. And the reason why I have cataracts is because when I had the spine infection, those very powerful antibiotics, according to the ophthalmologist, it accelerated those because of the treatment. So just like anything else, there's always some kind of side effect. But you know what? The fact that I'm not in a wheelchair or using a cane or a walker, I will gladly take the cataracts. Most importantly, thanking each and every one of you out there for reaching out. It really was just very, very nice to reach out to not only me, but James as well. So thank you.
Do you know who the referees were? Sorry, the judges were for Roddy Piper and Mr. T.
Who's that?
Cab Calloway, Daryl Dawkins. I don't know who that is.
He's a basketball player. He was on the Sixers for a while. Chocolate Thunder, Daryl Dawkins.
And G. Gordon Liddy. Wasn't he involved in Watergate?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And I think G. Gordon Liddy wasn't he at more than one WrestleMania?
I'll have a look at his Wikipedia, but I don't know how many. I'm going to just type in WrestleMania.
Yes, he was heavily involved in Watergate. And by the way, the theme continues because that dude at the commentary table also has quite the history, according to Ben Hameen and when you did further research in your solo video on him,
Which
Adam Weitzman.
oh yeah.
And dude, I was so close to saying this is the most expensive Make-A-Wish ever, a WrestleMania Make-A-Wish. And I had in the back of my mind, buy a wish. And guess our comment section does not disappoint. Half of the comments were buy a wish.
Mm-hmm. Buy a Wish with Billionaires with TKO. We're going to be talking a little more about TKO and Mark Shapiro's comments at University of Alabama or something like that. And he was I've just wrote it beforehand. I've already forgotten. But yeah, he made some very interesting comments we'll be getting to later on. But as far as the fallout of WrestleMania goes, we're going to be talking about stuff that happened on Raw. There were so many what went wrong that happened the last couple of days as well that we're going to be going through that. We're going to be reanalyzing the Cody Rhodes busted eye deal as well, because we immediately thought that it was, of course, the punch. Other people said, was it a punch? One person, or one report that I read, said it might have been from the RKO, which I don't think. But we're going to watch them all as well. But first off, we have to talk about Pat McAfee. He gets RKO'd. We watched WrestleMania 42 Saturday, night one. And it seems that the Pat McAfee experiment has had a line drawn under it, maybe a little earlier than people considered that it was going to be. Cody said in the run-up to WrestleMania, this is the most ill-received thing in wrestling history. The gobbledygook was wrong, the Shotmaster was up there, but that was kind of funny. So he's saying that this is the worst received wrestling angle or storyline or whatever in history, and it wasn't even funny.
Yeah, and this was before the actual match against Randy Orton where McAfee was involved, correct?
Indeed.
Isn't it quite the odd build-up, or is it, once again, they have to eventually pull the trigger if they keep planting these seeds of the WWE versus TKO type stuff. They've been hinting at it, and I think they even said like something like the commentary during something like that's the seat money can't buy or something. There was all these little inside baseball things, but Cody's literally for the build-up for his match is saying this is terrible. That's
Yeah.
very strange, isn't it?
Well, a couple of days earlier, there was a report out that WWE talent had been given carte blanche to mock Pat McAfee as much as humanly possible. Like, he was absolutely fair game. And Cody Rhodes, as well as other people, took advantage of that, I guess. Cody especially, though.
Do you think it's something like Pat had already said before all this stuff that, hey, I'm out, or they knew he wasn't coming back for anything after this WrestleMania? So just like in WWE fashion and now TKO, if you're on your way out, we're going to do everything we can to bury you on the way out.
Yeah, but in fact, more than potentially, because supposedly the plan was that they were going to go to Backlash, and it was going to be Randy and Pat versus Cody and Jelly Roll in a match that I think like some perverse sense of pleasure to watch what would happen there. But that was meant to be the original plan, and then all of a sudden, I'm wondering if Pat just said, "You know what, I've had enough of this," or "Do you know what, it doesn't make any sense," or maybe he just felt that he was too busy and just it wasn't worth it to go back to WWE. Because keep in mind that he had turned Ari Emanuel down originally before being talked into this. And it very much seemed like a rushed way of just kind of drawing a line under the Pat McAfee thing and then trying to focus at least more on Cody and Randy. And then if you remember, Randy Orton then at the end, Pat McAfee comes back out in the ref shirt. Randy Orton RKO's Pat, draws a line under that. Then he turns heel again at the end of it. It was all so confusing.
Yeah, there's lots of people that specifically with the match, and I know we'll go into greater detail when we break down and analyze all that stuff with the eye. But yeah, we were like, this is definitely going to be a double turn during the match. You just got rid of McAfee, Jelly Roll, or as we call him, Kelly Roll for some weird reason, my Philly accent. But you got them out of there, and then we got the most confusing set of babyface heat by Cody Rhodes on the sympathetic heel Randy Orton, who, as a heel, is overcoming pain and enduring a back injury, whether before the match or during the match, which was accelerated or amplified. And then he RKO's Pat McAfee and gets the biggest pop maybe of the match, and then turns heel after that.
It feels like that WWE had their like ideas for what the match should be throughout the match. But then they had to they kept the plan the same, but then they had to wrap the Pat McAfee stuff around it. You know what I mean?
I have a different take slightly where you were saying that and I started making this kind of hand gesture. It was like WWE and TKO had all these ideas for this match and couldn't decide what to do. So let's do all of them in the same match.
So the original plan, supposedly, was the mystery caller not to be Pat McAfee, obviously, but Aleister Black. Now, according to PW Insider, a pitch developed in January centered on Black tormenting Orton and attempting to bring out the old Apex Predator version of the character. The idea was built around the notion that if Black succeeded in drawing that side of Orton out, it would prove that Orton had never truly changed or evolved as a person, and that darker version of him was always lurking underneath. Now, there's two things to say about this. One, they'd actually been playing this out on television for a couple of weeks in late February, just before Elimination Chamber, and then Randy Orton moved on to the Cody Rhodes feud because he obviously won and he became number one contender. The second thing is, two, would it have worked better with Aleister Black rather than Pat McAfee? And three, wasn't this what Killer Cross was doing? And they've just taken his gimmick and give it Aleister Black instead.
Well, they pretty much gave the entire Cross Scarlet gimmick to Aleister Black and Zelina Vega. And then with the whole thing with Damian Priest, and the last time we saw them together was the Damian Priest Rhea Ripley versus those two, and we actually analyzed the Razor's Edge thing where Rhea was just dropping them, and not sliding down like Razor or Damian Priest. Yeah, but here's the thing. I know exactly how that was going to play out. Aleister Black tries to bring out the Viper, tries to bring out the Legend Killer, tries to bring out the evil version of Randy that he's been suppressing for so very long. So Randy, after the evil part of him comes out, he turns around and says, now you opened it up, and now you opened up Pandora's box, and now he goes after Aleister Black. That's probably the way it was going to be. They didn't do Aleister Black any favors with the previous non-push, the initial pivot of doing the exact Killer Cross gimmick, or you would say the Sean O'Hara gimmick of the devil on the shoulder, right? You're kind of like convincing this person or manipulating them, but they can't seem to get that dynamic to work with anybody. And I don't think they would have got it done. No, now Aleister Black, I would love to see Aleister Black in an actual storyline where his character can flourish. And that would have been great for Aleister Black, but maybe it would have knocked Randy back a few pegs. And Randy has a very limited amount of time, my assumption, left, especially if he re-injured the back. He doesn't. You're shaking your head.
Contract-wise, he's got another 4 years.
I'm talking health wise.
Well, maybe health wise.
I don't know if he's gonna be able to compete. If he does, he's an even more of a unicorn than he already is, coming back from the previous back injury and coming back at 290 and looking like bigger than Hogan sometimes. So, and they, by the way, if you enjoy the Hogan documentary ad, go back and watch WrestleMania.
Yeah, someone claimed that the Hogan ads totaled like 30 minutes across both nights. Like how much they overplayed that same trailer and advertised it.
Yeah, that was like Shades of Marine trailer during my Raw matches during commercial. Which we did get some entrances during commercial with that ladder match once again. During WrestleMania, there's people that had, and you mentioned the JD McDonough, that they played ads during JD McDonough's entrance.
Yes, they did. Amazingly, everyone started booing. And not because it was JD McDonough. I completely forgot to mention that. Going back on Aleister Black, in your heart of hearts, would Aleister Black have been revealed as the mystery caller been even worse? Because he's kind of just been so marginalized on SmackDown that he's almost a non-entity. I mean, would it have made his career, or would it have fallen even more flat than the Pat thing? Because at the very least with Pat, you can say this hand on heart. One, he got a lot of crowd reaction. He got a lot of people talking. I don't know if he sold any extra tickets, but there was more buzz. Maybe not a positive buzz, but it did get people talking. With Aleister Black, would there have been anything like that?
Well, you have to think about the Pat McAfee show and him being a part of ESPN and him being, outside of wrestling, a really big star in the U.S. in that particular category of sports. The problem is that Pat McAfee is not the heel he is on WWE, that he's a babyface on his own show. he's a likable guy, and therefore there's a big disconnect. Unless you live in the wrestling bubble and nowhere else, you're not gonna, he's playing bad guy. That's where it's Aleister Black could be better. But here's the thing: there's such a thing, like you said, he's been marginalized and not really featured on TV, hasn't been winning matches at all or having any forward momentum. So then when you try to put him in this spot, it has that, oh, you're trying to shove this guy down our throat all of a sudden, and people can react negatively to that. Like this is like nobody. And now you're putting the main event spot. He looks like he's not moving towards that position. He looks like he's being shoehorned into it. It does him no good. And maybe Randy did sense like that's not a good. Maybe somebody vetoed it and said, we'll find out on the real, that they looked at that and said, that may actually hurt Aleister Black more than anybody with this. So by him not being, on a short-sighted level, you could be like, man, he missed a WrestleMania push and run, but he would instantly be marginalized right after the WrestleMania thing is ended. He might get one match with Cody to run an interference for Orton, but I don't see much more than that. Do you see that kind of like playing out as the storyline? Very, very closed-ended, finite shelf life for that.
There are a couple of things to make mention of. Is that one, Aleister Black did beat Randy Orton shortly before Elimination Chamber, which is a surefire way to let you know that Randy was winning at Elimination Chamber, is make him lose right beforehand. But that was due to a Drew McIntyre interference thing. Secondly, after Pat McAfee was announced on the SmackDown, 2 weeks before WrestleMania, I think. So Pat McAfee was already announced. And he was there doing backstage vignettes with Jelly Roll and Nick Aldis and Randy Orton and stuff. For the eagle-eyed viewer, Aleister Black was in the far distant background of 3 segments that week. So they're definitely, I don't know what they're doing, but they're definitely trying to do something to keep him alive in this feud. But it does lend more credence to the fact that it was always, or originally conceived to be Aleister Black when, it could have been The Rock or Triple H or Batista or whoever it might have been.
Well, going back to Pat McAfee, man, he has some great wrestling instincts to refuse to be a part of this and be forced to, because he probably had an idea. He's smart enough to know that it could just have that go away heat. And he definitely got some buzz, but he also got some go away heat. Let's be honest. Aleister Black that's a great point out or call out of the Easter egg orbit that he was kind of in. That you kind of see him in the background where, do you think they were kind of touching the idea or thinking about saying maybe Aleister Black had Pat McAfee kind of work for him to do, like running, Pat's doing that, but it was me all along, Austin type thing. The thing with WWE is they never get these, outside of Taker and Kane, they never get dark, mystical characters correct. Those are the only 2 successful stories, right? Everybody else, Bray Wyatt was a huge star, but they didn't know what to do with him when it came to the wrestling aspect of this. Aleister Black's vignettes have been, with every return and iteration, the comic book thing and the animation, him just sitting there, all that stuff was done great. The entrance with the coffin thing and the candles. Well, then there's that saying of Bin Hameen. And then the bell rings. Awesome worker, amazing worker, but it never translates with the WWE audience. It's so, like you talk about the hardcore matches, they're so sanitized, saturated, bright, high production. This is a gritty gimmick presented in a very saturated, clean environment.
In 4K.
Yeah, 8K, the video game entrance like Orton had at WrestleMania. That's not a knock on Aleister Black. That's always a knock on creative. How can he not, hey, we make movies, pal. Then why can't you, they can't seem to get that part of the format with these, how should I say, otherworldly characters right within the world of wrestling.
With the people who it could have been, I joked at some point, hey, it could be Ted DiBiase Jr. He's, aside from that Jesus loves you, brother.
Jesus loves you. I'll pay me my $25,000 you owe me.
Thank you. That's what I was going to get at. So apparently, Randy Orton did this on an interview, and Ted DiBiase Sr. was like, "Oh, no, I never owed you money." And then Randy replied, "He went, Junior." So I doubt that Ted DiBiase Jr. is going to be welcomed back to WWE anytime soon when he allegedly owes money to Randy Orton. Like, hey, those boat payments don't make themselves.
That's a, yeah, 25 grand. You're a great friend. Lend a guy 25 grand. Good Lord. Maybe he can sell that boat.
Yeah. Pat then said on his show, quote, though the mission was supposed to be Randy Orton saving the business, what happened instead is Cody Rhodes proved he is the one. The good news is the business doesn't need saving after all. He spent weeks telling us it did. Good for them. For me, I'd finished my story. I came up on the indies. He talks about, everything he did in wrestling. Lucky to do all of that. It's been a hell of a run. Thank you, wrestling. So it doesn't sound like this is a storyline where he will be coming back on SmackDown and then, hey, surprise everybody. I mean, weirder things have happened. But it does feel like this was all ended really prematurely. It just seemed like it was supposed to go on a bit longer. To be honest, it felt like Randy Orton was supposed to win with everything they were building up to.
They're starting to now, the bloom is off the rose, as Vince would say. Now we're starting to see some of the negative things. Travis Scott thing, please come back for the AdSense, Travis Scott. The Travis Scott thing kind of ended abruptly because he just didn't want to put the work in. It's not easy to do. And Pat's the one that probably said it millions of times. This is hard. This is not easy to do. Lots of football players, even MMA fighters have said professional wrestling is an entirely different grind, an entirely different animal, and not for everybody. You have to be crazy. You have to be crazy to play football or MMA too, but there's a different kind of crazy in wrestling. It's funny about Pat the way, once again, when he talks about wrestling on his show, I know half the people are rolling their eyes. People are checking their watches. Let's get back to talking about real sports. But I'm reading the text. I didn't hear the quote or watch it, but it's kind of like, good for them. I'm done. Get out of my life. Good for you. I'm done. There seems to be, if you read between the lines, a little bit of like Pat saying, yeah, they made me cut this really crappy promo about the business needing saving, but they don't. And I always thought it was a stupid idea. So good for them. Best of luck in your future endeavors.
He made the best of a bad situation, I think.
Pat is not to blame for this. And then for people, obviously, you're literally, going after the messenger, which is Pat McAfee, the messenger of creative, and it's specifically Ari Emanuel's big Sylvester Stallone dreams have come to a crashing end. Thank God.
I think a point I made somewhere else was that unless it was Steve Austin, having someone completely unrelated to either of those guys to basically be the focal point of their feud, it never would have worked with anybody. But it especially doesn't work with Pat McAfee because that's really ridiculous. But I don't think it would have worked with Aleister Black either. I think it would have worked a bit better with Killer Cross because at least he'd had that established longer, but WWE got rid of him in the summer for whatever reason they did. But if it was somebody completely unrelated, it would have to have been Steve Austin or The Rock, but he's not as unrelated as it might seem on the surface. I just don't know who it would have worked with otherwise.
And if they really wanted to troll people, they would have brought Travis Scott back for another WrestleMania run. I was going to say that, the thing with all that, it just, nobody would have fit. The Randy Cody thing, and as a matter of fact, I go back further than that. And I'm going to advocate for this all the time, Highlander movie or not. Why you didn't let, and this is the thing, if Drew was going to film the Highlander, why did you not give him a good heel run? And it would have been a great one because Drew is great. From the Rumble or from the time he won the title to losing it at WrestleMania, maybe back to Cody. Do you see what I mean? Like, why did you cut? Why do you do that and then invest all these wasted weeks in a Pat McAfee that probably was already like, well, after this, I'm done, or after Backlash, I'm done. You tend to now have all these things where you have guest appearances or guest runs like Jelly Roll, and then they disappear for a while. It's very, dude, they've literally jumped the shark with these celebrities. We have 100%, maybe 99.8% of people saying this is just way too much. Even paired with the greed and buy a wish at the commentary table and everything, people are really, there's no WrestleMania revenge type of excitement with this.
We shall move on. Brock Lesnar, is he actually retiring, because there have been theories abound since Sunday when he was in the middle of the ring. He loses to Obafemi in about 4 minutes or so. And then it seemed, I was very unexpected to the fans, but from everything we keep looking at, it seemed really unexpected to most people in WWE as well. There was no hint of this happening, that he may well be retiring. He took his gloves off, he took his boots off, and the commentators were all very hesitant to say it was a retirement, but saying what it looks like is, but not calling it outright what it appeared to be, I guess. Where do you? I've got some reasons as to the pros and cons, I guess. But what are your reasons for thinking that is a actually a retirement, or it's a storyline, or it could be a retirement that ends up being Brock being convinced to come back for one more match? Where do you fall on that?
Yeah, I stuck with one of our WrestleMania review shows saying that Gunther, if they really want to continue what they been doing with him and kind of took a detour for WrestleMania with Seth Rollins, but his gimmick is retiring people. We're getting like the people are already on the retirement tour or about to retire, that he is going to be the one to do that. And he will be the one to bring Brock back if there is a way to bring Brock back. It's not Vince saying, hey, you want more match, like you said, the Punk, I'll make it up to you, pal. It's not like that. And Brock maybe comes back for one more match against Gunther, which is going to be, in a $10 million payoff. Like the person, like I said, that said, give me $10 million or I'll give you $10 million. Let me beat Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. That I'm predicting will happen sooner or later. But
Are we talking about Adam Weitzman again?
The ultimate buy wish. Yeah, the buy wish main event thing. But with Brock, once again, he's made a ton of money. This is what I said in the last video. He's made a ton of money. He doesn't love the business. It's a business to him. And if he's just done and doesn't feel like doing it, which whether he clued them in or not, if he did clue them in, commentary did a great job of making it seem confusing. We think this is what they're trying to interpret it like people watching it. I like that. But it looked very unexpected. And what the personalities of Paul and especially Brock, after he did that, he exited the ring, slapping hands. I love you guys, hugging Paul in the ring, tears. It just felt, wait, now he told Paul. I think Paul knew because it wasn't like the shock to anything. Paul just hugged him. His mannerisms are just such a departure from what the lead up to WrestleMania was. So long story short, I believe it. You get to a point where too early is better than too late. And maybe Brock realizes that. Well, you believe he has a lot more to offer though, correct?
I don't see why he doesn't.
I agree with you, but too early is better than too late. Maybe Brock's got a lot of stuff going on and he's just like, I just want to go back to my ranch and enjoy life. And if they want to tempt me with a one match, 5 million, 10 million, or a Saudi $20 million payoff, I'll come back for one more night. Maybe he's got injuries too. Remember, he's got the diverticulitis that can flare up and really bother him. There's a lot of factors outside of age. And once again, if Brock doesn't want to do something, Brock just doesn't do it.
So there's some notes here. Some suggest that it was real, or some suggest that other people simply didn't know he was going to do this. He gave the X symbol just before he hugged Paul Heyman, and I guess that's a symbol of this is real in one way, or, this is not storyline, essentially. Apparently, practically nobody knew Brock was going to do this, as it took everybody off guard, including potentially Triple H. Because somebody asked Triple H this in like one of the post shows, I guess, and he didn't really want to talk about it because I think he just gave the example that Brock, whether he's retiring or not after a match, he just goes through Gorilla. He's always angry with himself and he storms off to his bus and leaves, or whatever it might be.
God, that makes me so jealous.
Well, he has a bus.
No, he just leaves. He doesn't stay. Yeah, I don't think Brock's a big fan of the country club, you know what, that I've talked about.
Raw the next night had a really slapdash kind of Brock Lesnar tribute package, paying tribute to him, of course, which it was kind of cobbled together from like old DVDs or documentaries and stuff for the most part. Because you know how great WWE produced vignettes and video packages are. And that was not it. That was something that was done kind of last minute, or at least it appeared to be last minute. So if nothing else, it's caught a lot of people internally off guard who didn't realize that was happening. So if you want to keep it secret, you don't tell anyone, obviously. The next thing's a bit interesting. Paul Heyman went really hard on Brock being in the forever part of the WWE introductory package they have on all shows instead of the now portion. But trying to read Paul Heyman, whether he's telling the truth or not, is because he's a very good actor on and off screen, I guess, as well. That you don't know whether he's just, saying what he had in his heart or he was remembering what was in his head that he had to say.
Yeah, but you could say the same thing about the Triple H answering the questions at the post show or wherever he did it, that they are trying to do like a really, it's good stuff. We're talking about it, like what's going to happen. Like I said, you said the matches were too short. I wanted more. That's perfect. Right now, is he or isn't he? Okay. And sometimes WWE is so clever with the nuance and the detail. What I'm saying is, we're saying they're usually so great, they must not have known because of the package put together was kind of rushed. To me, it's like maybe Triple H, who really does have a great mind at times for these things, is now saying we need to go much deeper to try to fool the fans to think this is real. But this is the beauty about wrestling. If it's real, it's real. If it's not, we have kind of fun trying to figure out what's going to be next with this. Now, next week, if they do not mention him at all, might be real. If Brock going to stay retired or not, or Gunther cuts the promo, now we're kind of in that worksheet territory.
SummerSlam is in Minneapolis. And I figured, because Brock Lesnar, a few weeks ago before WrestleMania, gave an interview where he said that he was in WWE for a short time only. I still figure that most people thought this was too short a time. And because SummerSlam is in Minneapolis, that's Brock Lesnar's former hometown, essentially, that is probably where he was going to retire, whether it be against Obafemi again or Gunther or whoever it might be. I think a lot of people just kind of guessed that was the place to do it. So that was something else. Brian Alvarez claimed that somebody who's been very accurate with info in the past said that Brock will probably return for one more match. And as I said before, the commentators were very hesitant to call it a retirement because they were probably not clued in either. So they may well have just been reacting as well. But they didn't call it a retirement absolutely either on that front.
How did Alan Weitzman, how did he react? I know he didn't have a microphone on.
No, he was probably texting during the main event.
Oh, yeah, he was, wasn't he?
Yeah. Okay. Obafemi, how would you do some follow-up booking with Obafemi then? Where would you say he goes? Because it's got to be too early for him to go for a world championship. But then do you have him go through other belts, or how do you deal with him?
Well, Obafemi, I said that during the review show where we reviewed that match, which was so solid, and I think it lived up to the expectations and the hype, which they started to calm down before the actual match. We were joking about that. Right now, it's got to be no world title, no titles, but I think Obafemi, if you want to play it safe, he doesn't have an angle or a storyline, at least for a couple weeks or so, where every of the fallout from WrestleMania at 42 kind of plays out to see where people are positioned. I think you give them locals, you do the Ryback stuff where it's not just one, but then you have two, then you have three, that kind of stuff to keep him over, nice short matches, and handle them with care. In other words, and then if somebody comes out and says, I challenge you, as a matter of fact, maybe Obafemi comes out and does an open challenge week in and week out. You get the locals, you get maybe a Zack Ryder, unfortunately, or other people to put him over clean. And then we figure it out. And then it's got to be an intercontinental or U.S. title run. I think the Goldberg blueprint to buy as much time with this guy, give him a secondary title, and then the only way to go with that is not have him lose the title to win a more major title, have him go up against that. And if he's over enough at that time, he does the Goldberg thing, much like when Goldberg had the U.S. title, which he beat Raven for in one of his best matches ever, in WCW or WWE. You got to go back and watch that match. Raven did a great job leading Bill Goldberg, on him done that in a while, to a great match. So all the credit, I believe, goes to Raven in that match for the U.S. title when he won it. And then it's got to be going into the world title picture. And even more importantly than that, if he earns the right with the secondary title, the test title, then he goes into the main event. Don't do the current WWE trajectory. Keep him in the upper to main event tier for as long as he can hold it. You know what I mean? He gets up that point and he loses as champ, then they knock him back down or he disappears for 4 weeks. He's a guy that needs especially when you said that Randy might be hurt. Who knows what's happening with Cody when he's going to get cleared? Drew's taking time off to film Highlander, possibly. You need to have Obafemi on a run right now. And the safest way to do that is to stack up those Goldberg wins, an undefeated streak. What do you think? What say you?
Yeah, I don't know. Yep.
Yeah,
I think it's kind of the same thing. I don't know what you do with somebody because I don't like.
You don't go too far with it. You can't come back.
No, it's at the beginning. It's the locals thing. It's like, well, he's already beaten Brock Lesnar, and now he's going back to beating locals 1, 2, 3. I think that's kind of dead now. You can't do that with him anymore. You've seen him face someone of really high stature within wrestling and dominate them. You can't then bring him back to the locals. But then you can't have him go straight into the main event either. You need to drag it out. With the Raw thing, he just did. I think he just said 2 words in an interview and then left again.
Fans went banana for him, right? They were cheering. Oh, yeah. They were crazy for him. I'm just saying what I'm saying and trying to emphasize is obviously this is one of the hardest booking directions for a character. You have to treat it with a great deal of care. This character comes along not very often, especially from within the NIL, the Performance Center, NXT. He's definitely somebody you need to book with care. The open challenge thing might be something because then when he wins the U.S. or Intercontinental title, you can now have an open challenge with the title. I just feel like then anybody coming out like locals or anything like that, it's kind of laughable, but it's not Obafemi saying these are the guys I want to fight. It's the opposite. I don't have a great, they're in a tough spot. I don't claim to know everything, but man, doing it safely is better than saying, yeah, he can do it. Let's put him in a situation where we book him into a corner.
With the streak with Goldberg with WCW, the one thing that WCW had over pretty much any other roster in history was they had like 300 guys signed up and so many credible names that weren't going to win a world title, but your Kurt Hennigs or your Buff Bagwells or some, people like that who had credible names in WCW that Goldberg could soundly beat. Whereas in WWE, I think there's 50 guys on each roster? There's not that many people who Obafemi can go through without becoming a bit redundant and wrestling the same people over and over again. So it's not the same as Goldberg.
You have TNA too.
Yeah.
Hey, he did appear at TNA. He appeared at TNA as NXT champion before. What if this guy just goes around to even different places? I don't even know if Evolve still runs, or I'm just saying, shows up in different places and dominates people and does things, not necessarily their main eventers, but he can try to, he's saying he's the ruler, so he can go and try to expand his kingdom or something like that. I still think with 50 people on each roster and them not using a lot of them up to their potential, they can at least be used now to do something. And the one thing I don't want to see, and there's a part of me that's scared whenever they get tired of Obafemi in the spot, when the fans are really going to, you think they're invested emotionally now? Give it, as Bischoff said, that 6 months to a year point where they love the guy even more as long as you book him right. I remember Braun Strowman. He was the same type of blueprint. And then all of a sudden, one WrestleMania, he teams up with Nicholas to win the tag titles. The kiss of death, I'm just saying, the kiss of death is you put Obafemi in a comedy backstage thing with like Danhausen or Truth or that. I want to see that. You need to keep this guy on a credible Brock Lesnar type level. As a matter of fact, you need to, like, Brock was very careful about who he would do business with. That's why this was such a big deal. You need to do the Brock Lesnar, maybe not Bill Goldberg, the Brock Lesnar level of creative protection blueprint.
Okay, so the big news post WrestleMania regards a video that I'm going to use the word fans, but as you say, the word fan is short for fanatic. And there certainly were a lot of fanatics in the MGM Grand Hotel lobby running around unchecked. Now, the video that has made it circulated wide on TMZ and social media is that some skeevy dude was getting way too close to Bayley and AJ Lee, having like a last minute hug before I guess AJ Lee was going back home. And he was getting his phone straight in their face and trying to talk to them while they're having, a very brief, intimate moment. Private moment, how private you can get in a hotel lobby. But Bayley actually pulled AJ Lee all the other way around into a corridor to get away from the throng of fans, and this guy followed them and was circling around them. Bayley tried to move away this guy's phone to stop them filming. That's how close he was. He was within arm's reach. And then in a separate footage filmed by somebody else, CM Punk wanders in, slaps the phone out of this guy's hand, and then that's pretty much the entire story. Now, there's been so many other stories throughout the last couple of days of people complaining. Damian Priest had to rescue some of the women wrestlers from fans because they were getting overcrowded. Randy Orton, people were getting up in his face. Royce Keys, there's a video of him quite politely telling off somebody for overcrowding or demanding, autographs or photos or whatever in a more aggressive manner. Somebody said that at WrestleCon down the road, none of this was happening. Everyone was polite and respectful, that kind of thing. But in the hotel lobby, a lot of the fans who were going there were overly aggressive. And it's also very, very expensive. There were theories as to why this was happening. Did these fans not have enough money to go to WWE World, buy the photos, which were very expensive as well, and were trying to basically sneak some free ones in the hotel or whatever it was, or maybe it's just that crowd, self-agitating thing where one person acts like this and it kind of infects the others. It's a big issue with celebrities in general and wrestling, and we can talk a lot about the hotel, the lack of security. Where do you want to start?
Yeah, I think starting with lack of security, because this is something that was a deal even when I wrestled in WWE, but now with everybody, with the celebrities who obviously they have security. I talked about Vince always had some kind of security. I'm sure Triple H has security and his family and all that stuff. But where they lack, this is where it turns into, oh, it's just pro wrestling and it's not the same thing as celebrities or Hollywood or the NFL. In WWE, it's always had something, and you have some quotes here in the show notes about certain wrestlers and staff members commenting on this epidemic of being penny pinching from TKO and WWE to not provide higher full-time security that travels with everybody to the shows and everything, full-time staff members that are security. You need a security force to basically protect everybody, get them to their cars, get them to the hotels, and all that stuff. Now, obviously, the wrestlers, celebrities, to a point, can just try to avoid all this stuff and go right to your room. And we don't know whether they're going to the room or they were checking out Monday morning. We don't know about the actual time this was. But nonetheless, we looked and we seen no security except for hotel at the end of the video, I believe. Or, when were you waiting? It's a very reactive situation. It looked like rather than being proactive and saying, let's create this buffer and a perimeter. And obviously, you said in the show notes that it's in a casino. So already you can't block off fans or pretend because you have casino people kind of walking through, gamblers, people that have no idea wrestling's in town. And that's just something. And for what we looked at here, there's so many instances within the weekend that show that there's hopefully, but it looks like they aren't going to do anything until something really bad happens to one of these wrestlers or defending themselves from a fan. Then something happens to the fan. Then you have a lawsuit on your hands.
I'm going to get to some follow up with what happened here, but I also want to say that apart from the people that I named there, Randy Orton, Royce Keys, etc., more people have been complaining about Booker T. That was another one who just said it was the worst it's ever been that he's ever seen, as far
Wow,
as
that's
lack of
saying
security.
something. It's always been bad.
Yeah, yeah, he was really not impressed. Elena Black, the former Cora Jade, said that she'd recently been sexually assaulted by some weirdo fan at a convention. She's just basically sworn off conventions forever. Saraya, now Paige once again, has said the same thing. He said, the occasional person, most wrestling fans are fine, but the occasional person will grab her inappropriately, and she says, because she has done a lot of conventions the last couple of years, that she feels it's getting more frequent, and that certain people are feeling more emboldened or more comfortable to break those boundaries for one reason or another. So was it worse for you when you were with WWFE? Was it worse in any particular year? Was it worse in any particular situation, whether it's pay-per-view or European trips or whatever it might be? What were the worst situations with fans for you in general?
Oh, none for me. Nobody cared. I was under the radar and I love it. It's awesome. So you've already made me not regret ever leaving the house and not going to conventions because I was well aware of this back in 2012, 13, 14, 15 when I was doing them. But no, I never had much of an issue because I always kept to myself. I never stayed, even at WrestleMania some years, I wouldn't stay at the hotel. I just wouldn't do it. Unless they had an awesome gym, then I can't resist that temptation. But I've always avoided that kind of stuff. But people that have approached me or whatever have usually been fine. And it's usually because, oh man, they're not doing anything with you. I wish they would. That underdog type thing. So I've always had, much like with the show, we've always had that thing like I'm one of them. I'm one of like the regular people in the community. Of course, you're going to have some people that try stuff or want to see how what they can get away with. And I'm convinced even in 2026 or especially in 2026, whether it's a male or female, there's a lawsuit aspect to this. There's basically, let me see what I can get away with. Let me see how I can provoke them. And then when CM Punk slaps the phone, especially if they see Punk there, oh, let's see how far we can take this and we can get on TMZ Sports. Mission accomplished, right? Or we won't sue, but WWE and TKO will settle, or we'll get free tickets and free merch for life or whatever. There's always seems to be, you have your fans that are just don't know the boundaries and are excited, but they don't feel malicious. They just don't know boundaries. They're not very socially aware in that. But there's a lot of fans that are saying, this is where I'm going to get paid. That's everywhere, especially in the NFL. My God, I seen there's Devontae Adams. He shoved somebody on the way out. Lawsuit. There was other instances where fans threw stuff at football players. The football players tried to. Then there was that infamous one in the end of the NBA where I forget who it was. They just ran. It was in Michigan, I believe. Fan did something and then tapped them on the back of the head or did something. And these basketball players rushed and started fighting the fans in the arena. I was like, oh my God, it just doesn't, it's not limited to ECW, Lulu Temple. The riots are everywhere. So that's long story short with that. The fans and the wrestlers have very much a symbiotic relationship, but there's also these things that happen where it's adversarial at the same time. I can't quite figure out what the happy medium is. Hire some security and also apply more mystique. Because you think fans would put like camera phones, if they existed, in the face of Randy Savage or Ultimate Warrior back in the day? Or
These
Dick
days, yeah, probably
Murdoch
they
or
would.
Dick Slater? Hmm.
Yeah, I think some people would. That's the thing.
Back then, well, then they would learn. Even
Hmm.
in Memphis, I'm sure Dutch can talk about fans. They weren't like, oh, I'm going to meet the wrestler. But if you were a heel, people are going to try to kill you. Yeah, Smoky Mountain with Cornette and the Gangsters, and it's definitely the raw emotional energy that pro wrestling creates is the ultimate double-edged sword. You want them to care, but you can't like regulate how much they emotionally care one way or the other.
Now, you were talking about, different kinds of fans, and there's certain ones who get a bit confused with the boundaries and stuff, or are overexcited. But there's also another two type of fans. Ones who are, I think you said as well, the ones that are going to make trouble or want any kind of reaction out of you, regardless of what kind of reaction it is, positive or negative. But then there are also some people who are just sick in the head. Like, I mean, how many times have we seen, as I say, Paige, Saraya, um, Elena Black, Cora Jade, Liv Morgan's just had a stalker arrested.
Rhea Ripley.
Rhea Ripley constantly, she's bemoaning it. I mean, there are other people like Undertaker's mentioned it. Kevin Owens is sort of the Sonya Deville thing. Can we ever forget someone tried to break into their house and kill her, or at least kidnap her? The MJF thing, which we brought up last few days with the airline story, and someone pretending to be a pilot just to kidnap him. There are some seriously sick people, and I think the point I'm trying to make is, in a hotel lobby full of hundreds of people clamoring to get near you, you don't know which kind of fan is trying to get at you, or is surrounding you, or is not even in your peripheral vision sneaking up behind you. It could be really dangerous, and wrestling does attract some people like that. There's no denying it.
Yeah, and also in this case, too, like you had said, I believe in between segments here on the show, that people have been, basically unalived. And who's to say that this guy wouldn't go up to Bailey or AJ Lee and say, and just have a knife or bring a gun in there or anything like that? There's tons of things that can happen. And like I said,
here's something else. I'm very sorry to interrupt. Seth Rollins, remember a couple of years ago, some random dude attacked him. He got speared by some guy because he thought Seth Rollins had stolen money from him because he was talking to some impersonator on Instagram. You don't know the reasons people have in their warped minds to fall out with you, have this parasocial relationship, or be conned or fooled or whatever, and then they react like that. That can happen, and it has happened frequently, and apparently it's getting worse, especially with social media.
Yeah, and fortunately, very fortunately, there's not been any tragedies connected to this. The Sonya Deville thing is the one that was the closest that we know of, but get some security. Like you just said, Rhea Ripley, Liv Morgan, the Cora Jade, all these people, and even the male wrestlers. Yeah, they're a little bit too much of baggage claim, all that stuff. Where are we? Where's the point when you say, yeah, we should hire some full-time security? You know what? Everybody from Atlas Security still looks pretty jacked, and those guys are still a group of guys not to mess with, and they're beyond the novelty. People hire them for certain TNA shows and other things at the arena. They're still pretty legit, and they'll take care of any situation. And by the way, all those guys, which are nice guys to the wrestlers, so don't mix it up with the fans. They'll be respectful as long as you are. They're bigger than a lot of the boys. So that's what you need. You need some real, you know what? Hire some former wrestlers that are still bad dudes and make them security. It could be a path to give somebody legitimate ways to protect them. But what are you waiting for, WWE and TKO? Hey, Ari Emanuel, Mark Shapiro, Triple H, why don't you walk around without security, see what happens?
What will the sports do? All of the major sports do this, don't they? They've got their own dedicated security teams in-house that travels with them everywhere, yeah?
100%. Especially the NFL. I only know about the NFL, but they absolutely have security. They even do background checks and all that stuff on people, and they have metal detectors going into the stadiums. They have, I don't know what the arenas and places they have or what security measures. I'm sure for WrestleMania during this time, they better have a multi-layered security. You never know who's going to try something stupid. But here we are. Once again, you can't say these people are superstars, and then when it comes time to invest money to protect them, it's just pro wrestling. It's not as good as the other stuff.
Another thing that's interesting was the hotel choice. So the year earlier, I think they're in the Fountain Blue or whatever, which they could kind of lock down and whatnot. So for WrestleManias, obviously that was a bad hotel to choose because they can't secure it, especially when they've got no security. But as far as hotels in years gone by for WrestleManias and whatnot, when they had big shows when you were WWE, did they always pick a hotel that they could lock down? or did they just kind of just book wherever and make do and try and figure it out?
It seemed like they had it more together than what I'm hearing in these past years, and especially this year. In other words, the lobby wouldn't be locked down some years from my recollection, but it would be completely locked down other times where when you got off the bus or your rental car or anything like that, they might be outside those sliding doors or the revolving doors, but security would stop them and there would be like guardrails up and everything to keep the fans from crowding a bus or anybody pulling up. At the very least, they would be in the lobby sitting around and getting their autographs and everything. Then when it came time to get to the elevators, there was barriers there that you needed to go by the guard and make sure they knew you were a wrestler. Sometimes they didn't know I was a wrestler. I was like, I don't have this ponytail for the fun of it. Now I do, but they didn't then. But that would be the very least. Or they would have two or three with the main guy guarding going to the elevators. And if you said like, there would even be sometimes people guarding the floors where people were staying. So if somebody did get by, then they would be like, who are you? You know, because they would usually at least one floor, if not two floors that are like on top of each other. And usually it would be great for me. I would want to be on the same floor as the fitness center. They might even have somebody at the fitness center saying, hey, you can't come in here and bother the wrestlers while they're working out. It seemed like we had more layers of security when they weren't a multi-billion-dollar company.
Well, Kevin Nash also said that, let's not forget, they didn't bother doing any catering for the Hall of Fame. And they were there for like 9 hours, so that ended up being a bone of contention. More people as well. X-Pac, he said that he was assaulted. Sorry, Booker T said he was in the bathrooms doing a number 2 and somebody tried to film him or whatever it was. It's like really
God.
harassed. Like the worst of fandom humanity, all all condensed into that one weekend. Drew McIntyre said this: for those fans who spent hard-earned money on a chance to say hello, take a photo, have something signed, or give me one of my many, many bracelets, I appreciate each and every single one of you. To those who rushed my family and I in the hotel. Can you stop
right there?
Yes.
He's still referring to the CM Punk bracelet thing. That is awesome, dude.
To those who rushed my family and I in the hotel, kept your kids up until 2 a.m. throwing them in front of us, or shoved a camera in my face without asking, you're lucky I'm a calm-natured person outside the ring. Please don't ever do that again.
Okay. I think we're thinking about the same thing and how this could have a dual effect. You have the people that say, yeah, Drew's got a point and it's kind of a little bit too much, are already not doing it. They're already self-aware enough to know. The ones that read that on social media say, challenge accepted, and push it even more because they're very spiteful. I'm kind of against this. Now, talking to the office and making it an internal matter and complaining like that, people like Booker T, X-Pac, and Kevin Nash can be those third parties that can complain for the people on the roster. But do you kind of see what I'm saying? Like, if you protest this, the fans are going to be extra spiteful, the ones that already are set up, and the ones that were saying, yeah, Drew's really right and that's not right, are not doing it in the first place.
Another top woman's talent told Fightful, quote, it's Vegas, we were effed from the beginning. WWE never actually prearranges good security. It's like they wait until stuff happens, then they do damage control or add security. We love the personal security teams and they did as much as they could, but hotel security was busy taking care of the problems you already have in Vegas. So, I mean, pretty damning stuff there, really. And once again, I don't know why TKO, they're accepting, like, whatever that guy who sat at commentary paid could have gone to a personal security team or a full security team for the lobby to stop people from, harassing the wrestlers. But they won't.
Pretty much. But I can tell you this: next year, WrestleMania 43, I think the security won't be too shabby.
Oh well, indeed. Right.
People get such a kick at when I joke or get these little slide-in jabs or whatever, and you just don't react and move on. They think that's like the greatest thing ever. They feel bad for me.
But we both get it, though. It's like, I can't add anything to it.
It's just a game. Just like I when you're drinking, I try to say, what say you, James? You're like,
So, right, we've got to talk about this. The Bret Hart Diana Hart thing. And it's a kind of
Oh,
really long.
Lord. Oh, my God.
I don't.
Yeah.
Can you kind of sum it up? Because it's a very long, rambling post. It doesn't make impossibly clear what she's getting on at, but I'll read a bit of it. This is from Instagram. Bret does not present his statements as opinions. He states them as fact. The distinction matters because many of his claims, specifically about Davey's physical or mental state at SummerSlam 1992, are simply not true. It is my opinion that Bret's current misrepresentation of events at SummerSlam 92 may be influenced by the stroke he suffered in the summer of 2002. What cannot be ignored is the timing that Davey died prior to that, in May 2002. There was a full decade that Bret could have raised his claims directly with Davey if they were legitimate. He never did, not once. The absurd and hurtful accusations began after Davey was no longer alive to respond. Instead, Bret now frames over and over, despite my appeals to him with facts, proof, records, and critical reasoning, to please restrain and refrain from his slander. Slander, you can't really slander a dead person anyway. But Bret now cites this incredible match as great solely because of his own alleged brilliance, assigning himself all the credit while diminishing Davey's invaluable role. Bret's narrative is not supported by history, by documentation, or by what audiences can plainly see when they watch the match. Without Bret's overlapping slandering words. Davey's performance shows no evidence of impairment. On the contrary, it reflects Davey's professionalism, strength, and focus, despite the fact that he was recovering from necrotizing fasciitis, a serious and life-threatening flesh-eating infection. We have proof. She would later post not proof, because she posted something about having a knee injury, but it had nothing to do with an infection. But that doesn't even matter. Davey did not complain, seek sympathy, or disclose his condition to the public. He simply did work. It is difficult to reconcile these facts with Bret's retroactive claims, except to note a long-standing pattern of self-aggrandizement. In my opinion, and I'm very clear that this is opinion, Bret's tendency toward ego, bullying, and exaggeration predates both his stroke and the match in question. I base it on my lived experience growing up with him as my older brother, and on decades of observed behaviour towards family members and colleagues. What I will not accept is history being rewritten after the fact, especially when Davey, the person, being totally discredited and is no longer alive to defend himself. Davey was so good and loyal to Bret. What? I read that very quickly because it's very rambling. I'm not quite sure what the point is. Where is she saying that Bret is specifically lying here? Because I've got what he said in his book and in interviews about Davey that evening.
Yeah, I think what she's saying, at least my interpretation, and you have the next set of notes of bullet points on this, the order of events that Bret says leading up to the main event of SummerSlam 92, amazing show. If you haven't seen it, or if you have, go back and watch it. That match was amazing between Bret and British Bulldog, Davey Boy Smith. And the thing that's the point of contention here is what was happening to Davey Boy Smith before this match. Bret contends that Davey disappeared and was doing basically crack for weeks beforehand with Jim Neidhart, was not ready for the match. And basically, as much as Bret was trying, I think he said he was like going over the match, move for move, like the tanning bed, the gym, everywhere leading up to this match. And Davey Boy disappears. And Davey Boy locked up with Bret and said, I'm effed. That was Bret's quote, correct?
Yeah,
and Bret led the entire match and gave move for move what to do, and basically was working around Davey Boy, who was not prepared, not in shape, blown up, all these different things. Am I missing anything? That's pretty much what Bret said.
That's pretty much what Bret said. So the points is that Davey and Jim had been smoking crack for weeks beforehand, and Davey's drug abuse was escalating. Now, I'm trying to infer from Diana's thing here. Is she saying that he wasn't having drug issues? Because we know he was to a point and would do throughout the 90s, and then they would escalate further in the late 90s when he went to WCW. And then even worse when his back was crushed on that trapdoor with the Ultimate Warrior thing. And then he ended up getting hooked on liquid morphine. So it ended up, really, really bad stuff. But the fact was also he failed a drug test earlier that year as well. So he was being caught out for certain things, and he was fired for importing human growth hormone as well. So Bret put the match together. I don't think that's a stretch to say that, because Davey was gone for 5 weeks or something like that prior. Bret led Davey through the match because Davey got lost. Davey was not in the best shape and was winded quickly, which Bret has contended with many years. Davey had already failed a drug test, as I said. Bret said Davey performed great that night, despite all the obstacles as well. So Bret does still give Davey a lot of credit as well, because you can't wrestle yourself out there. So I'm kind of not sure where Diana's complaints, or what exactly that complaint was or is. What's she saying Bret's lying about here?
Well, I think the timing has more of the confusion with us and probably many people, right? Because how many years ago did Bret start saying this? And now all of a sudden in 2026, Diana is offended by it and going after it. I understand. I wouldn't want anybody talking about my spouse in a negative way like that. But Bret has always been a person, I guess, that just, whether it's family, foe, friend, acquaintance, is going to tell his truth to the matter. So, and you said there are facts that back up the timeline of Davy Boy disappearing, failing a drug test, things happening leading up to it's pretty incredible that he failed a drug test earlier before this match, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And they still put the Intercontinental title on him in the main event at Wembley Stadium.
They did, yeah. I think that was at Bret's insistence, because I think the original plan was for Bret to lose to Shawn, but then Bret convinced Vince to lose to Davey, and then Davey lose to Shawn, like 2 months afterwards.
And that In Your House, or was
Saturday
it
Night's Main Event, the last
event,
of the original. Well, you know, when it briefly went to Fox, there were a few of them there, yeah.
In Your House was where the, like, with the family and attendance, they pretty much switched the finish at In Your House, wasn't it? Wasn't Dave Boy supposed to win the title back, or the European title, I believe?
No, if it was In Your House. Against
overseas.
Shawn.
Overseas.
Oh, that was one night only in Birmingham.
Okay. But wasn't that for the European title, I believe? And they
Shawn
switched
won,
the finish?
Yeah.
Okay. Sometimes CT, maybe. I'm dodging it. I'm trying to dodge it.
Yeah, that's kind of my struggle, but also in Diana's book. So if she's saying that, like, Davey wasn't impaired, or like he wasn't having issues with drugs, but then in Diana's own book, she made some incredibly heavy accusations against her estranged at the time husband, and that book, not because of those, but because of other accusations regarding Martha Hart, I think the book ended up getting pulled from shelves. But it was like a really acerbic autobiography, that, and I read it cover to cover as well.
And so basically, this is like a weird 3 of the 4 pronged war going on. It's literally, she wrote in the book all these disparaging things about Davy Boy, who was her estranged husband at the time of the book, correct?
Yeah.
And then she's defending him against Bret. It's very, very strange. And this seems to come around right around WrestleMania season with these kinds of things going on. I guess there's more interviews, or maybe did he do a recent interview where he recalled it again and then she finally reacted to it?
I guess so. I think there was something like that, yeah, where he talked about it again. But as I say, she's trying to blame, I guess, Bret's opinions being warped or changed or whatever based on the stroke that happened in 2002. Now, there's 2 things that she says in her Instagram post, and said that Bret never raised these claims directly with Davey. Well, in Bret's book, he directly talks to Davey about it, as well as Jim.
Wasn't he frustrated before the match that Davey showed up after disappearing, and he expressed that frustration to Davey?
Yeah, essentially out of shape, I think, is how he would have described it. I don't know how much about a knee injury that Bret knew going in, or that Davey said, or that Bret said in the book. But ultimately, the point was that Davey, according to Bret, was out of shape, and Bret had to really get him through it, and he put most of the match together. But once again, Davey also performed really, really well, and they got through it, and it ended up being a great match. I don't kind of quite see the controversy with those comments, if you know what I mean. But then Diana, but also with Bret, in an RF video shoot in 2000, he also makes mention about Davey's, issues as well. And I think he might have made mention about SummerSlam 92. where Davey was not, firing on all cylinders, shall we say, or he alludes to it anyway without, talking about crack and stuff. So that predates the stroke as well.
Oh yeah, that's what she's contending, that basically after the stroke he started remembering things a lot differently. That's her contention with this. I want to say this too. I wish even I'm at full supposed strength and clean and all that stuff. I couldn't wrestle a match as good as Davey Boy wrestled that night. So Diana, he still delivered one of the best matches to James. And I'm sure James is a big fan of the match as well. One of the best matches I've ever seen in any pay-per-view, house show, TV. Just about the perfect match. Who cares who put it together? Who gets credit? In the end, they both get equal credit for having an amazing match. And guess what? Davey Boy beat Bret for the Intercontinental title. So that's the end shot with everybody, the fireworks, including you in the ring. I wish that everybody could focus on better memories of Davey Boy in this way. But I do believe, like you said, my suspicion is there was some kind of WrestleMania timed interview where it went all over the place and she got wind of it. And maybe it was just enough is enough after all this. But yeah, it seems like everything is kind of jumbled up with timelines on Diana's part, I guess.
We're going to move on. TKO comments Mark Shapiro. Now, Mark Shapiro, who's kind of second in command, I guess, with TKO above WWE, above UFC, did a Q&A at the University of Alabama, and I don't think it was meant to be recorded, I figure, because he wasn't mic'd up, and, this is probably just out of somebody's phone, so you can't really hear him, so I'll end up doing the quotes. But
is he still mad about families being able to afford shows, is the quote there?
Oh, dude, have you not read all the
He's
quotes?
He's like Mr. Burns.
Have you not read all the quotes? Because he kind of hints at it.
No, I'm reacting to this one. I just was like laughing, but here we go. We're on the same page as usual.
But pupils dilated.
What's he say in the forest? Love, IOP, I come in peace.
I come in peace. I come in love.
I actually said that after I got dilated, and nobody got the joke at the eye doctor.
Yeah.
Nobody.
It's bringing peace. Kill it. Break its legs.
Just so you know, you're one of the boys, because wrestlers only do stuff to pop the boys that aren't even there. Like, everybody's looking at me like I'm weird. I'm like, oh, I can't wait to tell James about this.
Mark Shapiro says this. I'm sorry.
He's not one of the boys. He's not one of the
boys. So the questioner, he rambles on a bit, but essentially questions about so many celebrities on WWE programming in prominent roles, and the person also brings up TKO having a focus on money grabs and asking how much influence TKO top brass has in WWE creative. Quote, first of all, TKO has complete control, so we're responsible for good or bad, fact or fiction. As far as the stars part of it, I don't think that's true, but if it was good, he's talking about the celebrities. I mean, The Rock is the biggest star on the planet. He talks about The Rock and such. He was a wrestler for WWE for years before he ever became a Jumanji star. I mean, that's just who he is. So having Hollywood tie-ins and celebs and stars and Logan Paul and Pat McAfee and Mark Wahlberg showing up and he does his thing, mention some other people, and we're spending a lot more money to market the brand and market the content. And when you do that, you're going to win some folks over, but you're also going to chase some folks away. So he's kind of really he's saying TKO, has creative oversight or can change things and they get final say. And then he's also defending the celebrity involvement with WWE as well. Where do you want to start?
We can start with the last line first. Basically, he's using the old sales tactic, I guess, of attract or reject. That's pretty much it. And what he's kind of using a pro wrestling replacement theory here, where he's saying we're going to replace the poor fans with the rich fans. And that was a main comment about the dude at commentary and everything else since the ticket prices is, are they trying to make it kind of like NFL, MLB, all these? It's not a family-friendly priced product anymore. It's luxury boxes, super VIP experiences, the ATV Karen, 2 nights for 70, 80,000, whatever it is for the front row tickets. This is what we're doing now. And I don't know how you fill up a stadium, as we literally don't, the middle class is being squeezed out of a lot of things. You can't have that many rich people that can fill a 55,000 seat show or whatever it is.
Speaking of which, WWE lied about the Sunday attendance by about 3,000. So they announced 55 something. It was actually 52, which is still, it's still a huge return. And so, but with the Saturday number, they were pretty close, 50,000, like a few hundred out. Whereas on Sunday, there were a few thousand out.
Why would they do that? Do you think that was a stockholder thing? We needed to hit a certain number. You were already over 100,000 combined anyway. So what's another 3,000 swing either way?
Exactly. What is it? But ego thing. It was always an ego thing. Then they don't make up the numbers quite as much as how they used to when it was just WWE, when they used to make up the numbers for quote unquote entertainment purposes, which they actually said on a quarterly report once.
Yeah, but they didn't do as bad as WCW Bash at Beach, 100,000 people. Remember that?
There was that one, but WCW also, let's say they got in 42,000 at the Georgia Dome, and then they announced 39.
Well, that's a WCW thing, isn't it?
Yeah, they actually reduced their audience numbers sometimes. They were that daft.
Wow. I don't know. So that's the first thing right there, the attract or reject, or we are, like Dixie Carter. We're looking for the over fans, Shug, not the under fans. That's a story for another time, the over church on a Sunday at a pay-per-view. But yeah, I know you're rolling your eyes at that.
No, I'm not doing that. I'm sorry. Okay.
Dixie Carter is just being Dixie Carter as usual. Mark Shapiro is definitely being Mark Shapiro with this, talking about that. But what are we looking at here? Is he just kind of saying plans are not going to change, pal? This is what we're doing. And it's our show. Good, bad, indifferent, fact or fiction? Or are we looking at a deep cut once again with these theories that we're going to have WWE versus TKO? We are in full control. Well, they won't, but you know what? They kind of should.
I don't think they will, but also I don't think this was meant to be recorded. So I think this has just kind of got out there. So I don't think he was like trying to play up the evil corporate TKO, running off the fans. This is just how they feel.
It's just the evil corporate TKO running off the fans.
But yeah, I mean, that's scary to think. It's like, hey, we're going to chase some folks away. And like, we get so many comments where people saying, I'm kind of done after this. And we keep hearing that. And ratings will fall after WrestleMania. That's just a pattern. Just like how much they'll fall, I don't know. I don't know if it's really going to affect stuff. But the fact is that you're going to win some folks over. What, with having Mark Wahlberg do the intro to WrestleMania that you haven't like advertised in advance, or Pat McAfee, or Lil Yachty, or any other examples I could give you, who are you winning over? Show Speed, I think, is a different kettle of fish because he does reach a lot of the kids. He's a good get. No one else is.
Now, Logan Paul, just by fact, but the celebrity type of, he's had so many appearances. He's been a full-time wrestler, and also the other stuff that you've covered on your solo channel don't really help him. But, they got the guy on commentary too. So I guess they're trending towards those, type of controversial people. I don't know. Is there a part where when there's so many, I don't know if this is going to be a good analogy or metaphor for this, but if everybody is celebrity, is nobody a celebrity in that way? Is there nothing special when you have so many celebrities that you're like, where's the impact of having celebrities on the show?
Well, WrestleMania 2, they found that one out. G. Gordon Liddy is a judge. They had so many celebrities. They had the Where's the Beef Woman, and then they had like apparently the rival Where's the Beef Woman, which was Herb, the Burger King guy or something.
Well, I do remember that. He kind of looked like Howard Finkel a little bit.
Shapiro, okay, to dive on this a bit more, Mark Shapiro and TKO executives genuinely think that they're going to attract more wrestling or more fans. They're going to convert people into being wrestling fans because Lil Yachty or whatever was doing the Trick Williams entrance, kind of. You know what I mean? It's like there's some sort of giant disconnect with how these people think and reality. Because my contention would be, and you tell me whether I'm right, wrong, or indifferent to it, it doesn't matter, that the way to build up wrestling fans is through wrestlers. Is that a crazy thing to say? Like, and like one might catch fire, and and that's how it works.
It's like that meme of Chris Paul with the guy having his mind blown. Wrestling fans will come to wrestling shows. Wow. But guess what? I've spoken to network executives before, dealt with them, and these people in corporate America can be some of the dumbest people that have no self-awareness, obviously not in touch. I never thought the day would come that a dude like Vince McMahon, who literally had a gas station at his home and never went to the grocery store. Yes, he did.
What?
He had
What?
yeah, Vince Russo told me he had a gas pump to fill up. He didn't go to a gas station. He had it at his mansion. So some rich people have that. There's his own
Amazing.
little gas station there for his cars. So doesn't help him on the Merritt Parkway if you're going 80 behind somebody and, end up, doing whatever.
He was doing 100, but who's
Let's,
counting?
I'm sorry. I mixed his age up with the speed. I'm sorry. He showed speed on the Merritt Parkway. He was the original I Show Speed. So, but I never thought a dude that, obviously never been to a grocery store, had a gas pump at his mansion on location, was more in touch with the wrestling fans than these dudes.
So, I mean, that is a big sigh, and it's a genuine one. AJ Lee and CM Punk had an interview just before WrestleMania. They were asked about celebrities and wrestling, and AJ Lee, when asked about celebrities she wanted to see in the ring, she said, no one. CM Punk said, Bad Bunny was a spectacular pro wrestler. This is the biggest, most recognized global pop star in the world. He isn't, and he's a fan, and he doesn't want to just come and goof around. He took it seriously and did it. And AJ Lee agrees and said, I have to support Bad Bunny, but other than Bad Bunny, my answer remains no one. And I think it's all this backpatting. It's all this because Mark Shapiro, in another quote I don't have here, essentially justifies WWE programming being split over so many different platforms, despite the fact that it's going to price some fans out. They can't pay for ESPN and Netflix and cable and everything else where everything else is. And it prices people out. It's 3 figures a month. It's over $100 a month for people. And that's a lot to invest in a pastime for something to watch on TV. And a lot of people will kind of just fall away from it. And Shapiro's excuse basically was, well, the New York Yankees, you've got to watch, 10 different platforms to watch all their games if they, go to the World Series. And that's it. We're going to lose some fans.
Well,
That was all he had for it. But the thing was, what he didn't say, but what was very much implied was, we got ours. ESPN paid us tons of money. Wait, doesn't matter if we lose some fans. We're making money.
Yeah, them's the rules. So, with Mark Shapiro too, they are trying to chase away lower income people. They've talked about that. That was the initial thing that this guy kind of put his foot in his mouth, or he did exactly what they want to do, which they've been doing. They've been on brand with TKO since day one. Remember, he was mad that Vince wasn't charging more for people to come into Raw, SmackDown, or the PLEs. This is what it is. I just don't know how much longer we are going to get. And by the way, in the comments, name me 3 Bad Bunny songs. That's Ben Hameen's quote. I don't know one. Do you? So,
dude, but Bad Bunny, he never really had any hits in here until a year or 2 ago, and not that many. So when CM Punk says he's the biggest star in the world, I think Ed Sheeran's probably the biggest star in the world, or Adele, or
I just think he was manufactured more than anything. But it doesn't discount anything from his pro wrestling performance. It really was amazing every time he was a part of that. But Bad Bunny, I don't think there's fans that are just catching this that even know Bad Bunny wrestled. That was like a lifetime ago in the wrestling calendar. What, 2 or 3 years ago?
Was it
maybe
4?
more?
Was it Backlash Backlash 2023 was in Puerto Rico, was it not?
Yes, but then he wrestled and teamed up with Damian Priest, I think at the Tampa WrestleMania 37. Not sure.
It would have been 37 because that would have been.
While you're looking that up, and by the way, Hogan and Titus O'Neil were hosting a show in pirate costumes, by the way. So, and the Hogan documentary is coming up if you haven't seen the 13 ads.
It's already out. I saw it this morning. I was like, I don't have time to watch it. It's out this morning. It was 2023, and you're right, 37. Well done. Bad Bunny and Damian Priest with John Morrison and The Miz.
Oh, three. That score is 3-1. For me against CT, I get the 3. Aha, aha, aha. So anyway, with that, dude, even though they said you have carte blanche to say anything you want in this interview about, or, these interviews with these wrestlers over WrestleMania weekend, how soon, and I think it's going to be soon, does TKO start saying, shut up? Don't say anything off brand. And as a matter of fact, I'm surprised TKO hasn't taken over the social media accounts of all the wrestlers, because WWE did that a while ago, didn't they?
They did at one point, yeah. Or I think they've got very, very specific directives. You cannot disparage the company, and if you do, you have to have special dispensation kind of thing.
Or what about now?
Well, with the security issues as well.
Yeah.
Loads of people have come out and said that.
So are they going to shut the talents down from doing this? Or, like I said, you keep hinting this. Yeah. Yep. Yep.
I think so. Here's an example, because it's not just WWE, by the way, that are upset with TKO, because obviously they own UFC, they own, I don't know if anyone cares about professional bull riding beyond, a very small niche, but boxing as well.
The slap fighting too?
Yeah, power slap as well, which Jake Hager won his debut on maybe Thursday or Friday, whenever it was in Vegas. I think they were in Vegas because loads of wrestlers were there to watch it. Anyway, UFC fans have been upset with TKO since the merger as well. At the increase in ticket prices, the poorer fight cards, the increase in sponsorship and brand focus, everything feeling way more corporate and soulless, unsatisfying matchmaking. Where have we heard that before? All they're doing, TKO, it just seems like it's just AI algorithms to maximize short-term profits. If we lose fans, which he said no less than twice in that 5-minute quote, we are going to lose fans. But then once he says we're going to gain fans back, and the explanation was celebrities.
Somebody book a Nate Diaz interview. That's what you need to do. He'll tell the truth about what's going on. I remember when they did the Reebok thing, he was like, I ain't wearing this, you know what? Get this out of me. I hate this. I ain't never wearing Reebok. Nate Diaz was he'll tell you exactly what's going on with UFC. But yeah, we have heard this one before. This seems to be a tale as old as TKO time. And WWE was accused of this at one point with that. How much more can you charge people for, quite frankly, they had the recycling billionaire at commentary. I said, he's on the perfect brand, the perfect company, because all they do is recycle and rehash the same bingo card every single calendar year. And people are now tired of it. You're getting less, and you're being charged more than ever. Something's got to break.
Yeah, do you know what it is? And all they're doing, I think, if nothing else, is driving more people to piracy. Because here's the thing with piracy, is it's cost versus convenience. If you make things cost effective and convenient for people to watch, way more people would rather, I don't know, the majority, way more people would be willing to pay for it. Otherwise, if it's going to cost you $100 a month or whatever, people are going to find other modes, other methods of watching stuff to stay up with the current product, if they are going to stay up with the current product. Some people will just give up.
Yeah, or what they'll do is what they kind of like brag about at times. If you think about it, they brag about their social media numbers. Specifically, they brag about YouTube stats and YouTube numbers. So most of mine, outside of us having to watch WrestleMania or whatever, I watch clips on YouTube. I'm not paying them money for any of that stuff. I watch clips. So if you want to get your fix of modern wrestling, you do that. But I'm going to tell you what people are doing more than ever. They're watching YouTube for the old stuff. How do we in 2026 look at Jumpin' Jeff Farmer versus Motley Crue and go, this match was actually better than a couple matches at WrestleMania? That's where we're at.
And back then, that would have been considered horrible.
It was considered horrible for back then. That was probably a joke match that was booked by the booker. I'm kind of convinced. Ask Dutch, was he a booker on International Pro Wrestling back then? Because I think that's a Dutch Mantel fingerprint on that.
We wanted to talk about one of the, it's almost like an investigative kind of thing of trying to find out exactly how and why Cody Rhodes' eye blew up, swelled up so badly, so quickly at the end of WrestleMania 42. Now, we did a video a few days ago. We posted a video a few days ago, last week, I think, with Cody's eye, and we just assumed it was the punt. We always assumed it was the punt because it's the most obvious thing to look at. But there's been other claims out there that it could be from a punch, could even be from an RKO. So this is where we're going back to the scene of the crime, as it were, and trying to find out the culprit of how Cody's eye got so damaged. So, over to you, Stevie. Tell us what you think, but beforehand, we're going to look at Cody's eye one more time.
Thank you very much, James. And yes, it does look like there was a crime committed on Cody's face and his eye. He definitely gave it all at WrestleMania, left everything in the ring. And I've said it before, WrestleMania, the guys agree, I guess, that liberties will be taking. Lay it in, brother. And as we see right here with Cody's eye, I mean, right there, unbelievable. That is a picture right there. This is a clip right here. Is the biggest debate point if you're going to say that wrestling isn't necessarily all, I say, real, but this is about as real as it gets. There are real injuries, real things that happen. And like I said initially in the first video, hopefully Cody's eye, it appears to be okay when we saw footage from Raw and things like that, but hopefully no vision impairment and definitely no long-term vision damage. So hopefully Cody's okay. But right here, what we looked at initially was the punt must have did it because the eye, it just was obvious how it swelled shut almost instantly. And if we look at these other clips where it's people debate, it could be a punch between the eyes from Orton to Cody, and then it could be Cody jumping off the rope, I guess, to hit the Cody cutter and then getting caught with the RKO. We're going to look at all those clips and see. But this is, no matter when it happened, this end result right here is, man, it is scary. You could have lost the eye, you could have a detached retina, all these different things could have happened. So, which clip should I bring up first, James, to really try to dissect, break down, and analyze?
I think we should go back to the punt first, and then we'll go to the alternative theories, I guess.
Okay. So, we actually have, by the way, a slow mo version that I can slow mo even more to break this down. So, here's the slow mo version of the actual kick there. And you can see they do a good camera cut sort of after the impact, not on the impact like you usually do. I'm going to slow it down even more and then zoom in to see where exactly Randy kicks him. That looks like directly on the left eye to me, doesn't it to you? Right at the point of impact. Now, when you're looking at the boots, and it could be like, well, he didn't kick him with the point of his boot. He didn't kick him really with the front of the shin. Kind of he kicks to the side where it's not the boot. Now it's close. We're talking about a game of centimeters. But I'm going to say this. I'm still standing by this even before looking at the R2 clips because of a few things. The number one thing I just mentioned, the eye swelled completely shut instantly. Usually that kind of trauma, and I'm not a doctor. I played one on TV years ago. Usually that type of trauma does not build up over the course of minutes and repeated impact. Usually in a boxing match or MMA, the second the dude gets caught with a punch dead in the eye, doesn't that eye swell up pretty quickly, James?
Yeah, I think so. I believe so. Swells up within seconds because I think partly it's your body's reaction to protect the eyes, as quickly as possible, or even stop the eye from falling out.
It's inflammation
That's
too.
what the
It's
swelling's there for,
instant inflammation. I'm sorry that I talked over you. There's another factor with this, and this is what I'm looking at, not just the impact or maybe the shin bone under the boot, which the boot is a very thin piece of leather, especially up here. Yeah, it's not protection. It's not like kick pads that we talked about off air once. If he was wearing kick pads, it's still impact. And sometimes when you wear those kick pads, by the way, you think you can kick people harder and it won't hurt. It doesn't matter. It's a layer. It's a layer of like elbow or knee pad in the kick pad. The other part that I think could have caused the trauma from that are the boot laces that caught him in the eye, the actual part of the eye. So maybe the punt did not, but a combination of the impact and then those laces, which are pretty rough kind of parachute cord type of laces. Nonetheless, he kicked him dead in the eye, in the temple, cheekbone, all the above.
I think I've asked you this before as well, and there are a couple of different ideas. I mean, if you can make the punt more safe, one of them is obviously Randy Orton just kind of, do like that Ric Flair knee drop thing where he would only he barely touch you at all if he touched you at all, or just go for the hair, and just be complete illusion. I mean, I'm not quite. Is it just because it was WrestleMania 42 and it's going to be the breakout of the move after so many years? It's like we're gonna make it look good.
Yeah, but if you just break the move out, I'm going to put it right here again. If you break the move out, isn't just breaking the move out after years of being banned enough, even in a work sense? But here we are at WrestleMania. Lay it in, brother. And I understand that. And Cody would rather make it look like he'd rather take the extra impact. I think most of the people in wrestling would rather, if it doesn't take their eye out, they would rather just lay it in safe places rather than making it look completely weak. The only way I can see this, and I don't know how to do it, so I couldn't tell you. This guy's done a much better job with these punt kicks, kind of like a Shining Wizard. If you could figure out how to do the Shining Wizard version with the punt kick there. But he did the hardest one I've ever seen, besides this one, if it is the one that closed his eye up, is the one where Vince would say, like, literally kick my head off. And Randy sure as heck kicked his head off. He took care of Stephanie. If you look back to when he did it, when Hunter was like pretty much handcuffed in a corner or something, he ended up punting Stephanie. And that was definitely, but it didn't look like a complete work. It was just the move done on a woman that made it look much more vicious.
The other thing I think I asked you beforehand as well at some point was, would it have made more sense for Cody to cover up with one arm, obviously where the boot's coming from, just get the elbow and arm up, and for the most part it would kind of look the same, or would it just look lame, or would he just be potentially asking for a broken arm?
Yeah, I
if
think
Randy's going to lay it in.
Yeah, the last part is where, let's put the analogy of a chair shot. Obviously, you won't put your hands up, but one of the reasons, if there's not a reason, because there's never a reason to take a chair shot unprotected, but at the same time, you put your hands up, you run the risk of breaking fingers, breaking your hand. Especially, I've seen people break their wrist just doing that. And guess what happens anyway? They get crowned with the chair and get a concussion anyway. So now you have extra injuries. So that's why WWE, thank God, have done mostly back chair shots. Of course, we're going to talk about the Bron Breakker one, which didn't necessarily work out as a back chair shot that busted the back of his head open.
If you go through a few frames, I'm wondering if certain people are thinking, well, Cody just whipped his head at the right time. But I think it's kind of clear that the contact is made hard enough that it's moving Cody's head quite significantly.
He did not. Dude, he might have been like going with it, but that initial kick, look at that. How can you say he was moving? He didn't like feign or, parry or whatever you call it in boxing to kind of turn his body to avoid it. He took it, and then the momentum brought him around to end up on his back. No, this is a rough one. And Randy didn't punt him. Like, look at Randy's knee bend. He's not doing a Pat McAfee punt. He's doing a he's trying to protect Cody as much as possible while, in this instance, making contact. But unfortunately, that area, especially the two parts, the temple, number one, with the amount of, you talked about this with sparring, the amount of force to give somebody, a black eye, swallow their eye shot, and even more importantly and more scary, that temple does not take a whole lot of impact to do some permanent damage.
So that is theory number one, the punt to Cody Rhodes' eye from Randy Orton. But there's another theory out there that's made the rounds, and that is that Cody Rhodes was either fully damaged or at least partially damaged by one of Randy Orton's punches just before or was it just before or just after Randy Orton KO'd Charles Robinson, the most evil referee in the world. So over to you, Stevie. Are there any punches there that look like live rounds to you?
Well, here's Charles. He obviously is no selling whatever Randy did to him, the most evil person ever to exist. And there we go. He's a friend of the show, just like Ric Flair, by the way. I'm looking at this punch. I think
With
that
Little
was
Nate, isn't he?
Little Nate. He just somebody on Patreon just posted he posted a new thing in his robe on Facebook. So he can't help himself. All right, now this is the punch they're saying got him, right? This is the got him brother punch. Yeah, he punched him right between the eyes. It's kind of motion blurred, but here's the impact. The thing with this is if you get punched, and I've been punched there and have my nose broken, and you get the two black eyes based off of that. Now, it's not an immediate thing. Now, the nose break, you obviously have trouble breathing, deviated septum, blood will come out of your nose, but it will not. I've never seen it, even in boxing MMA. I could be wrong. Um, if somebody gets punched right there between the eyes, and especially with a work punch, he's just kind of, Randy has a tendency to do the rubber mallet, like I talked about with Christian on top of the forehead, but he's catching him low or like above the bridge of the nose between his eyes. If this is the case, if this is what did it, that's a nice even shot between the eyes. Wouldn't both eyes fall shut, which is incredibly scary? That the match would have to end at that point, correct?
Mm-hmm.
He couldn't see. So you're talking about a punt kick where it was directly on the left eye, left cheekbone, near the temple area, and this is between the eyes. This is nowhere in the vicinity to have that localized trauma to the left eye and close it up. That's just my opinion. What do you think?
Well, there are 7 more punches, and you can see a couple more punches in that Randy has opened up Cody Rhodes, and I believe hard way. There you go.
Now
that's absolutely fresh. That's like 2 punches prior, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, you can also argue, so when just a few seconds before Cody is punt kicked, you can see footage where Cody's eye is a little swollen as well, but you can see his eye just fine. It's not swollen shut. It might be a little puffed up, it might have a little blood in it, but it's not swollen shut until the punt kick, and then just seconds after the show ends, and then Cody's getting up, his eye's completely swollen. So I still think it's the punt kick, absolutely, but do you think this punch could have, started the job that the punt kick finished?
Well, absolutely. And nothing helped Cody with this, the RKO and everything. He took a lot of trauma to his face. Now, this is an interesting gash right here, a cut, because did he do the poke U-shape thing? There was no room for that. It was like you had said before, it's like the Terry Funk hard way eyebrow punch. But this is very far, unless he got busted open right there on the eyebrow. I'm going to point at it right there, kind of. This part right here is the part where the blood is going up and over, where I feel like it's that middle point at the top of the unclothed, the open triangle. You see the little point at the top? That's where I think the cut is. But to me, that's the rubber mallet that hard weighed him that's on the side of the forehead. You're still messing with that temple area and around that part of your eye and your orbital bone. But I still don't think, I think that like Cody might have had a broken nose, or at least his nose is swollen from the other punch. This here, I believe, is just, is this the punch? That doesn't look like, that looks like right on the top of the head. And it looks like he's just kind of grazing him now, That one between the eyes was the heaviest punch as far as I can see. There, that one connected, but that one connects once again on the forehead. That's the rubber mallet punch.
You know that Randy Orton's got kind of form for this in the sense that, like, over 20 years ago, when they were trying to get Randy Orton over as, the next big thing, basically, he was part of Evolution. Mick Foley returned briefly. I think he was plugging his first novel at the time. And he was there for a few weeks, and then he disappeared afterwards after Randy Orton kicked him down the stairs. But there was one segment in the ring where Mick Foley had suggested to Randy do the whole Harley Race thing, basically punch downwards with the knuckle.
Knuckle out.
Or, the knuckle out. And then try and, cut me up, hard way, I guess. And Randy Orton couldn't do it. He just kept punching him in the eye and working the eye, and it just swelling right. Oh, you're probably watching it on the screen at the time, I guess.
I do remember it happening. I can't tell you when I'm backstage or not. It was never a consistent thing, but I do remember that doing, and that was really a what went wrong. That was just like The Simpsons. We referenced that. Stop it. He's done. All right. He just kept punching him to infinity. I think Terry did that in ECW too, and was trying to bust Mick open and swallowed him up again. Like there's been instances where this is not a, it's not a given that you're going to just get that loose skin or cartilage to bleed. You're better off just poke U-shape.
So that is theory 2, but then there's an even more interesting theory that is theory number 3, that somehow Randy might have got like a thumb in the eye or something when Cody was going for the Cody cutter from the top rope and Randy turned it into an RKO. Tell me, Charles Robinson has already passed out at this point. He's napping on the job, of course. So tell us, Stevie, what do you think? Does this have any credence that the RKO could be the culprit?
Now, first and foremost, I just want to point this out that, like, no matter what, he always has to steal the spotlight. Even laying face down, he has to be in the middle of everything. He's wearing his pretty little black gloves. Can't touch any blood, which I'm joking. I don't want anybody for that. But this move right here, with I believe Cody going for the Cody cutter and Randy countering with the RKO, is a lot closer than the punches. But I still don't believe it. We're going to play it, and I'm going to show you because he does land. Boom. And you might not think it's anything. The weird part is Cody's coming down on his side. You know why? And this is where I give Cody complete credit. If he went flat, he might have landed on Charles. He was protecting Charles here. I really believe that in all seriousness, because look at how close he is already. And even that arm and elbow, dude, that's scary to land like that. But I believe that if he had landed flat, he would have landed right on top of the back of his head and neck area. So Cody is definitely willing to take a very hard bump to protect other people. Now, speaking of bumps, I want to show you right here. Just one frame up. There. Cody's left side of his head, cheekbone, and possibly eye looks like it's making contact with Randy's collarbone. Can you see that when he's landing? That's the only time that I can think. Once again, I feel like this is a combination, this move between a what went wrong and a what went right, based off of him protecting Charles. Because he would never take he's not afraid to take a flat chest, stomach, and face bump off the RKO. He was strictly in midair. He was like, oh, Charles is too close. So there's a what went right with it in this that Cody's willing to take more damage. But do you see right there? It's kind of hard, but the side of that eye, temple, and his cheekbone are hitting Randy's chest, and I believe that collarbone. That would swallow the eye shut, but don't we have a bit more action, including Cody? I'm going to go back to this. He definitely that's him holding up the belt before the punt kick. So this is after the punches, after the RKO counter to the Cody cutter. He definitely has the makings of a black eye. But dude, it is nothing compared to this right here. Like, how do you get to that point? And even here, look at the little, do you see that little, it looks like it could be a scar, but that looks like one of the laces on his eyebrow. Do you see that? Look at the line, like covered right here. I'm still sticking with the original thing. Now, all three things in the entire match, even with the chain wrestling and doing everything, it was a very tight, snug match, downright stiff with the strikes. So it could have been a buildup, but even right here, his forehead is swollen from those rubber mallets. Up here is where he got hard weighed. If you're getting punched up here, how does this all get swollen up? And he's got a little egg under the eye right here. Everything looks, and look, it's a little bruise from the boot, from the shoelace. It just looks like everything here is lining up with the pun. Now that I keep looking at it, do you see what I'm seeing?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely fair enough to say. There may have been damage done prior, but that swelling is from the punt. I'm pretty sure of that. Because, as you say, there was, just 10 seconds prior, he could still look out of his eye. 20 seconds later, his eye balloons up. Those punches were like 5 minutes or so before the punt kick. So other people were reporting it as if it was anything but the punt kick, and I don't know why. There was fan footage that I think's been removed since, because I couldn't find it anyway, that the punt kick looked even more deadly than the official footage.
Was it like, kind of like a ring apron type level looking up at it, because it would look at, you can see it. I can't believe a fan cam can catch it better. But then again, the WWE tries to sanitize these types of things. They can, now Cody didn't have a concussion according to the report, which is an absolute shock, because these are mini or micro concussions with the punches, with the RKO, and with the punt kick. So yeah, I have no doubt he was seeing stars. He was getting his bell rung, all that stuff. So, and Cody had canceled all his appearances. Did we get word, by the way? Did he fulfill the obligation of the bus tour?
I do not know. He cancelled his WWE World Photograph appearances, as you rightly said. So I wonder if he did do the bus thing. I've no idea. I don't know who would admit to doing it. Because I'd love to know if it actually happened or not. But if he cancelled the photo appearances, I suspect he would have cancelled the bus thing. So that's 120 grand down the pan,
yeah,
right
Mark
there.
Shapiro's punching the air right now over that.
I know,
but 120 grand. He has to find new money now and get rid of the old money, just like the fans.
Oh well, he's gonna have to rent the commentary chairs out even more now to make up for the shortfall.
Who is that dude?
Dude, he's the trivia question, that guy. So Cody was put in concussion protocol, but he is believed to not have a concussion. He did actually have an update, though, which I'm going to... I'm not going to switch the camera. I am going to switch the camera. Here we go. It's quite small writing. I'm sorry you can't see it, Stevie. In a post on his Instagram stories, Rhodes wrote, quote, "You won't lose an eye. Has to be the most positive, yet absurd thing I've ever heard in a doctor's office." So at least he's got the eye checked properly.
I was happy, too. I just heard the same thing. Not losing my right eye. So, Cody, we're twins, except you're in better shape and wrestle better. And
hey, you've got two eyes, and you've got two eyes.
No, between you have two eyes. You can see, smartass.
Right then. The other thing is that I think it's probably not that bad, because they got Cody out there with CM Punk the day after, or 2 days after, I guess, that match. So. And, teased a match upcoming. So I'm figuring that they're figuring that it's not that serious. It just looks worse than it is. And especially if he's not got a concussion and his eye's pretty much okay, then we should see him back sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I think it might have been, if they didn't want Cody out there, since they canceled the appearances and everything. And I believe that was a WWE TKO call, because I believe Cody sees it as an old school type wrestler. Son of Dusty Rhodes would have been like, this here puts credibility back into the business. Like I said, if there's ever a debate or an argument about wrestling always being fake, all you got to do is look at this picture of Cody right here with the eye. And Cody is definitely a company man. He's a trooper. And I believe if they insisted on canceling the other stuff, I think Cody insisted, I have to go out for this and cut this promo. And that was really, really well done. Him and Punk did a lot of what's called show don't tell, especially Punk looking down at the belt. That was a really well done segment, which makes me look forward to an interesting babyface versus babyface match.
I said this to Dutch about this a couple of days ago, and I used the phrase, "It's good for the business." And Dutch went, I've not heard that line in years. But that's what they all used to say back in the day in the territories. You get an injury, you get a visible mark on you. Good for the business, kid.
Yeah, well, here's the thing with that. As my disk space gets low, so I'll have to clean up after this. But here's the thing with that. I understand if you kind of go, oh, good for the business for a while. Nothing's good for the business if you're permanently hurt. But there's definitely, you might as well maximize the fact that it happened. It's like, I'm already hurt, might as well finish the match mentality, which doesn't play right now. But it's, I'm hurt. We might as well make something out of a storyline or continue it and not ignore it, which WWE, I have to say, don't ignore it. Remember, we almost missed out on Mr. McMahon and the Attitude Era and the Stone Cold Era based off the Yes Men saying, ignore the fact that Bret Hart punched you and gave you a black eye. We were that close to never having it.
Hey, well, he wanted to be a babyface. He thought he was the babyface.
He still does.
He still does. Okay, then, Stevie, we've got to move on. And once again, we have to address Iyo Sky. And once again, we have to address her doing another tope through the ropes that goes completely wrong, almost catastrophically wrong at this point. So over to you, Stevie. What went wrong?
Thank you very much, James. Before we even get into the dive, I know what they were trying to do with this, and the story behind this is Asuka and Curry saying, big surprise in pro wrestling, a tag team is not getting along. There's dissension amongst the ranks. But here, she just whips her into the ropes like she's whipping her into the ropes instead of grabbing her by the hair, kind of throwing her through the ropes, but not really. She just kind of whips her, and Iyo Sky just ducks down, which if when I was wrestling, I wish I knew because I would just go through the ropes, leave and powder and leave the arena without bouncing off the ropes. So right there, that's just my nitpick. But what happens here is in real speed, and you can see right there, it's just not, it's not something exclusive at this point. It's not a one-off. This is almost every single week, every single time she does a move like this. Am I imagining that? Like this is like half a dozen times or more that this girl's been dropped or dropping herself on her head like this. Dude, that's that's the Sabu Chris Benoit bump from back in the day when Sabu broke his neck. That is a potential neck break to the side, which is the most dangerous one. They're all dangerous, but this here is just crazy. Now, I'm going to put some blame on Asuka. And I've talked about with a crossbody doing this, doing the catch, the bear hug up, down, the north south bear hug catch. Watch Asuka's right arm. Now, Iyo Sky is a little bit off. I'm going to go back there because usually when you dive, and you pointed this out before, her knee is up instead of the dive through the ropes like Superman. Bring your toes up to clear the ropes and go through. I'm speaking from experience when Chris Jericho talked me into doing it at Jim Thorpe in ECW, and both my toes caught the top rope, and it was Chris Jericho pulling me down off the ropes, or else I would have landed on my head. But Iyo Sky kind of brings this right foot up, which turns her body in this direction. Then Asuka goes to catch her, kind of north-south, but look at the right arm. She just, I guess she thought she was going to bounce off her or something, which I guess she did, but she bounced off her, and then we get the pogo stick bump. But you see how Asuka just kind of alligator armed her with the right arm? Like, if I'm going to do this dive, Nia Jackson, Last Legend, and nobody, maybe Jade Cargill, but nobody else. Because look at this. When does this girl, like, she's already tempted fate, being a cat lover, she's already used up basically all her 9 lives. How much more till, oh God, I hope it never does, but how much more before the thing we're hoping for, the best case scenario, is she ends up like Big E. He's fine, but he can't wrestle again. But she is closer to Draw's territory with these types of bumps.
You have made mention of Jay Lethal and the way that he told you how to do a tope or take a tope, and it's basically a pushing thing. You go directly into their chest and you push off of each other's forearms, essentially. Why are so many people not doing that?
I have no idea because I think it looks really cool. Seth Rollins does it like that. Remember, he did the 3 dives out. That's exactly a Jay Lethal type dive. It's almost like he's giving you his forearms or planting his head into your chest. You're bringing up your hands or forearms and you're pushing off each other. You know what happens? I hit the barricade, or I can hit the barricade, go to the floor after his third one. That's what I did, just kind of peeled to the floor. But Jay lands on his feet and slides right back in the ring to do another. That's why I hit the railing, bounce back, same thing. And Seth is really good at doing that style through the ropes. Why are you making a face?
I was scratching my face with my
Oh, sorry.
lip.
Well, you weren't taking a drink. I'll say, what say you, James? But this screenshot says it all. I mean, this is how this girl's landed. Let's not forget, her friend Carrie saying, if I remember correctly, literally threw the back of her head into the corner of this apron right here. Did I misremember that?
I don't think so, no.
No. It's almost every week. So you could say, oh, you're just being like too careful and you're being, okay. If this girl or any other wrestler that does this and lands like this on a consistent basis, if you're not feeling it today, tomorrow, next week, month, year, you're going to be I'm 54. I feel it every day. And I didn't do anything like this. I did a couple little things here and there, but these people are going to be paralyzed or something worse by the time they're in their 30s or 40s, if they're even lucky.
The way that Iyo Sky does it is so weird because it's kind of like neither fish nor fowl. It's like a quarter crossbody, a kind of half a tope, and it's also and twisting in midair at the same time. It
And
must
you know
be
what else?
really awkward.
Not to interrupt you. You know what else she does? If I crossbody somebody, which is, you'll be traumatized if you see that because it's awful. You almost like grip around the person. You almost go and you make this kind of shape around the person, like a U shape where she should be around Oscar like that, and then they both take the bump. Iyo Sky's almost like flat like an ironing board, and then she goes in that direction. Do you see that? Her body's almost stiff to where she bounces off and lands down here instead of both of them going straight to the floor. I mean, they went to the floor, but not the way, because even this, as you look at this, her neck is still impacting and her feet are almost touching the floor next to her head. Her spine is basically a U.
Could you get up the one from a week or two ago, the Iyo Sky thing? Because I'm hoping
I do
that
not
you can
have that.
actually
If Chris
compare.
can beat roll that in, I do not have it on my iPad. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
But what you just said, repeat what you just said. Can I bring up what from when?
Like last week. Well, that's the point. The point I'm trying to make is she's diving a week or two earlier. I can't remember if it was a week or two ago, but it's very recent.
Then we
on
went
Raw.
wrong about it, didn't we?
We did. But the thing is like through that one, she's diving through the ropes, but it seems like by the time she's not even through the ropes, she's always pointing downwards. Which
That's
is
a good point.
Yeah.
What they should do, and this is the Jay Lethal Seth Rollins way, you need to keep your chin up and looking at your opponent. I know what she's trying to do, but you're right. You know why? Because when you put the chin back, you sort of have that Ricky Steamboat kind of swan dive type thing. Your body's going to follow your head. So when you do that, you go back, kind of like tucking your chin on a bump. You aren't going to hit your head. The opposite is here. But she's not even tucking her chin. She's coming through the ropes, kicking her right knee out, and then that puts her on a trajectory to go on an angle instead of straight down. Yeah, so, and maybe Asuka couldn't catch her because she was so leveraged to that right side, she couldn't catch her and pull her in. I just feel like she shouldn't do this anymore. The moonsault is impressive. That's what people pay to see. This is forgotten unless you do this and then we're talking about it a few days later.
Next up is Sol Ruca, and this is a reaction video. Stevie does not know what he's about to see. All he can see is a frame of Zarya and Sol Ruca having a hug. So with WWE Raw, Sol Ruca is now part of the main roster officially. She's made some appearances before on television. She was in the Royal Rumble. She was part of the last 3 in the Royal Rumble. So, it was kind of almost like a coming out party for her for the main roster at that point. But now after the day after WrestleMania, she's now part of the main roster. One thing that I wanted to mention before we do this reaction thing, Stevie, is she wrestled Liv Morgan, who's the new women's champion on the Raw side, and she hit the Soul Snatcher on her. That whole backflip off the ropes into the cutter deal. Liv Morgan, instead of, laying there and then someone running in or whatever, she rolled out of the ring. And I'm not just talking about rolled like to the nearest bit of the apron. She log rolled across the ring to then escape from Sol Ruca, who couldn't pin her from there on. And I was like, man, way to kill that finisher on the first day.
Well, not necessarily totally kill the finish, but it definitely looked like she had enough energy to roll herself out of the ring. It would have been much better to have possibly the way I would have set up the finish, Raquel Rodriguez, because the Soul Snatcher is done from the corner. So you're able to at least get your foot on the rope, even if you're as short as Liv Morgan, to have Raquel put the leg over the rope or the foot on the rope. That brings Sol Ruca outside, and then this girl ran her into the post, correct? So she can still jump her, but it protects the finish. I really do believe it wasn't the worst way to protect the finish, but it also wasn't anywhere near the best way to get where they needed to get. The confusing part is this is the girl that attacked her on Raw, and now they're hugging a day later.
Well, to
That's
set
my
up
first
this,
reaction.
to set up this, there was a last woman standing match in NXT between Zarya and Sol Ruca, and the story at the end of the match was that Sol Ruca did not have the heart to push Zarya off a kind of almost like eagle's nest, kind of like plinth, about
Oh, the
9 foot or
Gronk
so.
bump, the Gronk Vince bump from WrestleMania during COVID.
Yeah, kind of. Or if you want to call it the Brian, was it Brian Lee? Or was
Yeah,
it Big Dick
Dreamer.
Dudley? Yeah, he
Or
was one of the.
Dudley during the uh, tag, during the three-way dance at ECW Barely Legal. He chokeslammed Big Dick Dudley. The Brian Lee one was Dreamer versus Brian Lee. Was it called High Incident or something? And he knocked him off like the scaffold thing, and he went through all the tables.
Yeah. So anyway, this is a. They
Yep.
somehow come up with a slightly more dangerous version, but at the end of this match, they're hugging because Sol Ruca didn't have the heart to push her off the eagle's nest, and then Zarya does the John Cena evil face while hugging, and then we see this, Stevie.
I hate you. Voluntary. There you go, voluntary. Oh, that was voluntary. Okay, so Cody's not in concussion protocol. Guess who is? Actually, she might have lucked out, James.
Hmm?
I think her arms. By the way, why do they do that? Why do they throw their arms back so much where you can pop a shoulder out? You know the biggest heel in wrestling right now is
Slim Jim.
Slim Jim Brand. They're responsible for more pain, heartbreak than anybody out there. By the way, could you set up a spot anymore to say we're going to throw somebody off of something? Right? That
Yeah, I
is
like they've got guardrails there as well. But yeah, you've told me this before that that's the wrong position for a table bump as far as the arm position.
that's my feeling. I love doing that.
So I mean, the referee's there. I mean, that is probably like 8, 9 feet up in the air as well to
Hey,
whack your
guess
head on the
what?
table.
People say only this, you're only on the top rope, you're only up here on the eagle's nest. It's only 8 to 9 feet. Guess what? It's bad enough when you're looking down at the tables. Do you know what's worse? This. That's right there. That's the moment. That's like the end of Die Hard where they didn't tell Alan Rickman that they said we're going to go on 3, 1, go. So, for all we know, this year they were kind of saying, I know this is what happens sometimes. You can't really do it in pro wrestling, but you want the natural shock reaction. So you almost go when they're not so ready. It's kind of you don't want to do that in pro wrestling. I take that back. But man, she got very lucky.
Well, we don't know
Very
that yet.
lucky.
We don't know if she's lucky or not yet.
She got as lucky as she got. I think her head didn't hit. See what I mean?
Hmm.
I think she just barely. Now you might have got your head scraped up. You might have a cut on your head or something like that from the edge of the table. I'm sorry, the edge of the Slim Jim table. Let's call it that. Do I think it's like a what went wrong? And I think it's just you get into a spot like this where the risk versus the reward is very much raised, the risk part of it. And these things tend to happen. She's falling backwards. You know what would have been the worst thing? Looking over your shoulder. She didn't do that. I give her credit because guess what I would want to do? Oh my God, where am I going? So hopefully she's okay. Of course, here we're looking at something post WrestleMania as the landscapers come by. Hopefully my plugins are working overtime on that. But when you look at this, it's like, yeah, storyline, psychology, it makes sense for this kind of turn, the John Cena turn on this. And all I would say is people would say, why don't you move the tables closer? How many times have we seen these tables be moved in this direction closer, and then this person overshoots the tables? What do you do? Do you put a third, a fourth, whatever it might be? Because then she could hit the edge of the table here, the edge of the table here, and then we're talking about it's just a very dangerous spot. And she is taking the ultimate nesty plunge, trust fall, whatever you want to do. But hopefully she's okay. Was there any update on this? Is she injured?
No, this was last night as we record this, so I don't really think anything has been released since then. I'll just double check. I will just double check. Pretty much, no, nothing has been released. Just a lot of that move on social media making the rounds, of course. So Slim Jim must be happy.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. You can reach out to us. I know you got your hands full with the WWE ads, but tell you what, these acoustic, see, there's room right here. There's the Slim Jim acoustic panels.
Yeah, I've got the TV back there, man. We could put it up there. Right, one more. We're going to do a what went wrong, and this was definitely a what went wrong. Bron Breakker returns after injury, only to receive probably the next version of concussion protocol, or the next person to be put in concussion protocol, thanks to Seth Rollins. Over to you, Stevie.
Thank you very much, James. By the way, he is looking more and more like Rick, isn't he?
Dude, that leather jacket is so Rick's. It must be Rick's.
But he almost looks like just a younger version of Rick because the hair's growing out a little bit. He's got the goatee and the mustache growing in. All right, let's take a look at this because I thought too, the chair shot looked a little bit high. Although when I watched the segment, I didn't see the obvious blood in the back of the head. But here we go. Yes, he caught him with basically the same part of the chair that I did on JBL, only in the back of the head, dude. That is very dangerous. Why is he not doing remember when he turned on the Shield, he hit Roman Reigns in the back, Dean Ambrose in the back. Remember?
Mm-hmm.
Why didn't he just hit him sideways? Oh, I know he didn't mean to do it. Yeah, he grabs the back of his head right there. He knows. Is there blood there yet? Yep. Oh, what a gash. Wow. That is a pretty gnarly gash, isn't it? Instantly.
Have you ever had staples?
Yeah.
Or
from the Singapore cane. No, staples right along this side of my head. During the Singapore cane match, Streamer baseball swung in. And remember I told the story when I went back, I went to the shower and I started washing my hair and I put my hands in the cut. And they gave me, I think, 8 or 10 staples. Because the next week I wrestled Goldust on Heat. And Jim Ross actually, they had B-rolled the Singapore cane shot, and Jim Ross put over that I got staples. And I'm wacko because I'm still wrestling. But yeah, that's totally, that is a gash, man. That's deep.
Dude, you can tell it's deep because it's red within half a second. It's not like blood is pouring out of it. He's chopped the skin in half, split the skin completely, exposing his brain, essentially.
Yeah, that's not a tear, an avulsion, but that's a split. That's an impact that just wide open. Because he didn't go like that to cut him open. This was just an impact right here. Good Lord. And then obviously.
So a few seconds later, this is after the Street Profits come out. So if you go backwards, Stevie,
He looks out. He absolutely looks out right there. He's still here. Is he in concussion protocol?
He should be.
I mean, he's out, dude. He's just kind of wobbly and bent over. Like the term I would use during all this, yeah, he's kind of just collapsing down too. That's what I just saw for a half second. And you got Paul staying low because he knows they're going right here over the barrier.
Oh, dude, go back to Paul there. Just go back to Paul. Look at the amount of blood on the floor in between Bron and Paul.
Right there. Hey, he's just pouring. He's got so much blood going on that as we go to the spear, it looks like he got busted open in the front because it's literally pouring around as he bent over on all fours like he was. The blood's pulling around the side of his face and over the top of his head. So, man, and he looks, I mean, that right there is not the face of somebody who is working, how unhappy he is because he's saying to himself, I just came back and now I'm probably going to be put in concussion protocol. And now I have to maybe go away again. Who knows? I got to get stitched up. Nobody likes to get busted open in a place where it's going to be visible. Jade Cargill still has like that little bit of like makeup or something like leaning into it. But yeah, right there. Yeah, it came from here and it pulled around to the front.
Well, you can see the super kick he's about to eat as well, because this was a pretty stiff one.
Why? No, he grazed him.
Oh, okay. That's good.
He
Hey, it
missed
looked
him.
great.
It looked great. He might have caught him on the ear. Just for, I think Seth let up. Oh, what are you doing? You're taking something from me, Seth Rollins, besides the initials? Look at you.
The beard and the hair.
Oh, dude, do you see what I see? He could have blew his knee out when he bucked. Oh, his ankle too.
Oh, dude, do you know what it is? That's the Nikki Bella thing.
Look, did Seth Rollins sprain his ankle? Oh, that's ugly. We got 2-1 bronze. Right there, dude, look. Ow. Oh, double feature, I guess.
Do you know what that chair shot reminds me of? Is I can't remember. I think it was Dennis Rodman and Hulk Hogan, I think, on a Nitro, hit either DDP or Brutus Beefcake, waffled them in the back of the head with the chair and put them out for a decent amount of time from it. For some reason, I think it was Brutus Beefcake. I don't know why. But it was the same thing. It was a chair shot, the lip of the chair, the solid round frame of it, straight in the back of the head, and man, that can do some damage.
Anytime you hit anybody in the back, guess what you don't do? This exact thing right here that I'm backing up to. You just don't crack somebody. And I know he didn't mean it. Right there. So I know he didn't mean it, but at the same time, he has his whole back exposed right here. And people will get it. The chair shot to the back from Seth Rollins, right? People instantly know, but my goodness, this is are we heading to an untenable situation? How many they've eliminated house shows, but the injuries have increased 2, 3, 4, 5-fold. How do you these are very preventable, by the way. And I wouldn't doubt that Seth Rollins, what if Seth Rollins now is in a walking boot because he rolled his ankle on a spot on the Raw after now you're out. Bron Breakker, all right, Randy Orton could possibly be out with the back injury potentially. Cody Rhodes is maybe not cleared to work for a bit. Drew McIntyre is filming Highlander. You got to be careful with Punk. Even if he is still in the mix, you got to be careful. He's on a pitch count. Now, Bron Breakker might be in concussion protocol when he just literally came back, and Seth Rollins may now have a sprained ankle, right, torn ligaments, whatever. Well, God forbid if he has an Achilles tear. What are we looking at here? We have a much bigger, that has nothing to do with these guys, but it seems like, hey, what does Danhausen say when he's a smartass? You are cursed. Do we feel like they're cursed?
I've got a question for you. Do you think Bron Breakker was wearing that leather jacket because of the chair shot? Is that an old wrestling trick, wear as many layers as possible?
Yeah, I mean, no, I think it might just be his way of doing it. Then he tears the jacket off to do the spear. It's kind of a presentation thing. But it's a great point because you know why? Just like we talked about with the strap during one of the WrestleMania reviews, I think it was Drew and Jacob Fatu with the strap. The chair shot will have more of a thud and reverb sound than just a t-shirt. Yeah, and I'm telling you right now, I don't think Bron Breakker's like, oh man, I don't want to take a chair shot to the back. I think right now he's saying, I wish I took a chair shot to the back like it was planned.
Well, we plan on ending this episode. That was the best I could think of at the time. We're ending this episode of the show, damn it. That was the best, flip around. I can't even think of the word. I've done a lot of shows. Segue. That was it.
That's the word. I was like, yeah.
Lord.
That was the word. That's okay, man. I will complete this one. You've ended both of our full WrestleMania review episodes. One because I had to really go to my procedure. The other one because we were down on hard time both days. Shout out to Big Boss Man. Rest in peace. I got that one right. See? So, thank you very much for watching episode 94 of the Stevie Richards Show, the WrestleMania Fallout Show from 2 nights of WrestleMania, as well as Monday Night Raw. And unfortunately, a record number of what went wrongs, and we might have 2 what went wrongs within this last one with Bron Breakker and Seth Rollins. Once again, James Romero has a solo channel where he can just say, this wasn't supposed to happen with the screenshot and thumbnail and get 101,000 views in one day.
It's 110,000 views. We got another 10,000 while we were recording it.
So sorry. 110,000. I'll put some respect on the James Romero channel. I have Cameo, cameo.com/Stevie Richards, as well as patreon.com/Stevie Richards. Watch alongs every Monday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern Time. Now back on schedule. Show notes every Tuesday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern Time. And of course, the show before the show every Thursday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern Time. Once again, thank you so much for watching episode 94. On the road now, not only to episode 100, but the 2-year anniversary. It's gone by so quick of the Stevie Richards Show. Thank you so much for watching this episode. See you next week for episode 95. Aha. Aha. Aha.
It was 116, by the way.